Welcome to Dreadful Digest, where we look at your favorite horror novels and rip apart their adaptations. I'm one of your hosts, Tessa Nelson.
I am the second host, Michael Estrada.
I'm also a host. My name's Sam.
And we have our special guest back, Sibia.
I'm back.
It's been so long since you've been here. Welcome back
We
to
missed
the pod.
We did.
So last episode, we looked at the 1992 Candyman, and today we're looking at the Requel sequel Candyman that came out in 2021. It's going to be a little different because technically it's a sequel to the first movie, so it's not really trying to base itself off the book. But we're going to basically be picking out the parts that are references from the book, references from the original film. So that's how we're going to structure this episode. It's a little bit different. So Candyman is based off the book The Forbidden by Clive Barker. It's a short story in one of his anthologies. So that is where the original came from. That's the inspo. What are you guys' initial thoughts of this Candyman? Your non-spoiler review. If you want more info on our thoughts on the original Candyman, check last episode. We're just talking about the new one.
Pull up the hook hand story again, Sam.
Just do it again.
We'll do it a second time.
Yeah, I had a really great non-spoiler review for the last
Yeah,
episode.
do
So shout
the
out to the
last
last
one,
episode.
if you missed it.
Wait, why am I starting? Why do I have to
I
start
don't
on
know.
this
Someone
one?
else
I don't
can
know, I
start.
tossed
Someone
it
else
to you.
start.
All right, who else wants to start?
I think it's a lot of ideas in one movie. That's it.
Is that a thumbs
perfect.
up? A lot of ideas, or thumbs
a-
down? A lot of ideas.
It's a-
Or,
It's a half. It's an interesting lot of ideas going on in one movie.
yeah.
That is perfect. That's a perfect review. Yeah. The reason I love the first movie and the short story is it's not afraid to shy away from the dirty things, the taboo things. But this movie feels very clean. It doesn't have that grit of the original. So it just feels so different. It doesn't. It started off strong, and then it lost its way. Definitely.
I think you nailed it. I think this movie attempts to tackle a lot of very interesting ideas, but it feels like it takes a lot of like the grime and like reality of the first movie and the short story, and it makes it kind of corporate feeling. I don't know. It makes it feel more like a product to me. And maybe that's just a result of like the fact that cameras are better. I literally don't know. But it's like the set design and everything just feels, I don't feel as immersed.
Polished.
Yeah, it's too clean, and it takes me out of it a bit. But I respect a lot of the stuff it attempts to go for. But I'm not sure I particularly had a great time with this movie. We'll get into it, I guess.
Yeah.
But that's my review.
I think this movie suffers from art world curse, which is that any movie that features the art world that's all I'll say about that. But I do think I differ from y'all in opinion. I did enjoy this movie. And I would, if I had a letterbox review, I would just call it Candyman's Revenge. That would be what I would. That's my well, I guess that is kind of a spoiler review,
That
but
should have been the title.
Spoilers.
that's yeah.
Instead of just calling it Candyman. Because
Candyman's Revenge.
all the Requels love just using the
thing.
name.
I always wonder why don't they come up with their own
Right.
subtitle at least.
I don't know. It's a trend, and I don't get it. So last episode, we had synopses for both the short story and the 1992 film. So if you want to check those out to get familiar with it, please do. But for this episode, Sam is going to give us a synopsis on the 2021 film.
Whoop.
Yep, that's right. And I wrote it kind of like coverage because that's the only way I know how to summarize anything. If anybody looked at my synopsis while I was typing it, you would see. Well, I actually did capitalize some of these people's names.
What is coverage?
It's like
Huh.
a book report. for
Yeah,
movies.
yeah. It's like in film development for our fans at home who want to get into feature film development. Look up what coverage is. Michael, you don't need to do that though.
Oh, I have you to tell me right now.
Okay, it's when well, I guess you don't need to look up anymore. It's when you usually there's like a log line at the top.
Yeah.
Which is 1 to 2 sentences describing what the movie is. depends on the company if they want you to say what the ending is or not.
Okay.
In my experience, at least. And then usually it depends on the company, but usually there's a grid where you can rate the script on character, story,
Interesting.
theme, setting, etc. And then usually there's a 1-page summary for a 90-page or so script.
Okay.
And then there's a comment section where you do not give notes. Don't give notes.
What do you do with comments
really?
then? What is the point?
In my
Opinion,
experience,
what-
yeah. So it's like the things that were effective for storytelling's sake, things that were not effective for storytelling's sake.
It depends on the company again.
It does
That
depend on the
part
company.
also.
The
That
whole
sounds
note,
like
What they
notes.
want.
the whole
Mm.
a note would be, for example, like I think Anthony's name should be Stefan. That's not
Oh.
that's not
Okay.
productive. You know what I mean?
Okay.
You're not giving suggestions to the writer. It's
Okay.
just Anthony's name was ineffective because blank. You know what I mean?
Okay.
That's not a
Interesting. That's a
note.
good
It's
way
so
to
that the
word it.
executive can pretend they read the script. But it's faster. They have lots of stuff to do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's like literally thousands sometimes
Yeah.
of these companies' backlog of scripts.
So they can just read a 1-page thing. And they're like, okay,
But also
okay.
there's like specific form. So like there's specific formatting things. So it's not normally in bullet point form. It's usually in essay form. But like certain things, like you always capitalize someone's name the first time they appear.
Oh.
You give them like an age in parentheses and sometimes a brief character description.
Fancy.
So the bit is I wrote the summary in coverage
All right,
format.
that's
yeah,
good.
that's
All right.
for everyone at home who wanted to understand why I said that, because I haven't summarized something not like that in a while. Anyway, let's get into it.
Well, fun little lore fact. We actually did coverage a lot when we were interns at Blumhouse.
Oh yeah, that's worth mentioning.
so that's how
yeah.
we know Sam. That's how we know Sibia.
Yeah,
Why did I say you both?
that's a we. Yeah.
Anyway, that's
All right.
more.
I don't know if
Blumhouse
any of that
lore.
is going to be good for the pod.
Probably not.
But anyway, here's the summary. We open in Cabrini Green. Also, don't say we open. And if you're writing a script, you're not supposed to say we open. But some people do.
Really?
Yeah. You're not supposed to.
Do. There's no rules.
Exactly. Like, nobody really cares. Like, a lot of the greats do, but, like, you're not technically supposed to. Whatever.
Oh,
Are you
Fine,
Are you
don't
taking
worry
notes?
about your-
Yeah, you're okay.
remembering for future.
Yeah, I definitely didn't do that.
Well, we opened in Cabrini Green in 1977 to a boy doing his laundry. I don't remember what the boy's name is, unfortunately. Oh, it's Burke.
Yeah.
It's Burke. Thank you. Thank
Oh.
you for affirming.
You.
I
Oh,
actually just. No,
Oh,
I
it's
think
Burke.
it was just
Thank you.
Sibia for affirming. Oh my goodness.
Sorry.
Anyway, we opened in Cabrini Green in 1977 to Burke doing his laundry, but he's interrupted by Candyman coming through the walls. And then he screams, and there's police outside, and they kind of do nothing as he screams. Now, present day. Troy and his boyfriend go visit Troy's I shouldn't do the names like this. This is going to be confusing. Troy sort of matters for this, right? Troy and his boyfriend go visit Brianna, that's Troy's sister, for a dinner party. And so it's Brianna and her husband, Anthony. Now, if you listen to our last episode, you might be thinking to yourself, Anthony?
Yeah, it's very obvious.
Yeah, you'd be right. If you've ever seen anything Candyman related before, you're gonna know everything about this movie from the minute this character is introduced.
They
But
could have called him Tony. They could have tried to hide
they
it.
call him Anthony the first time he's like. Anyway, I mean, whatever. It's fine.
To be honest, I didn't pick up on it until like halfway
Did you
through.
really not?
No, I wasn't. I forgot what the kid's name was.
Oh, okay. Because for me, I watched it
Yeah,
back to
'cause
back.
Most people aren't going to be watching it.
Well, I did, and I saw that immediately.
Yeah. We
Yeah,
did watch it
I
back to
saw
back.
we
I
did.
still missed it.
I think in the lead up to the movie coming out, it was in the press releases that he was the baby.
That he's the baby.
Oh,
They
I
announced
think
that.
so.
I guess they
Yeah.
weren't trying to hide it.
No, I don't
Well,
think they were.
There you go. So Troy and his boy. Wait, I already said that. So they go visit Anthony and Brianna in their new apartment in where? Cabrini Green. Except Cabrini Green is now hip, gentrified, cheap. Not cheap. But you know what I
That's
mean.
the
Those like
opposite.
plastic. Well, they're super like rich, right? But you know, it's like those plastic form apartments that are just like everywhere. That's what Cabrini Green is now. So Troy tells them the story of Helen and her graduate thesis. Watch our last episode. Troy tells them the story of Helen and her graduate thesis, how she was a crazed killer who burned to death in the annual bonfire after kidnapping Anne-Marie's baby. Again, listen to our last episode.
Because that's not real.
It's all
It's fake.
That's incorrect.
So anyway, Anthony then meets with the gallerist who urges him, who's like, what's your work going to be for the show? It's literally happening and I don't even know what's going to be in it. And Anthony's like, I don't know. I'm like not inspired. So he goes out shooting and he's like taking pictures for inspiration. And then a bee stings him. Remember this. I low-key
In
forgot to
Cabrini
write this down.
Green,
Yeah,
right?
yes, he's in Cabrini
Projects.
Green. But he's in like a different area because he's not in his building. Anyway, then he meets Burke, who's an adult now because it's not 1977. And Burke is like, you ever heard of Candyman? Actually, I don't remember how he introduces it exactly, but it's basically, he's like, you want to hear the story of Candyman? And then this is where Burke reveals that he was the kid from the opener, except Candyman did not hurt Burke. Actually, Candyman came through the walls of the laundry room and he offered him candy because that's what a Candyman would do. He offers him candy, no razor blades, just candy. He's like, would you like some of this? But it was after Burke had already screamed. And this is where we see that the cops actually did do something. They rush in there. And then Burke realizes his mistake. And so then the police push Burke aside and they shoot Candyman right then and there, dead. So anyway, Anthony hears the story. He returns home. He's inspired. So he paints a piece inspired, by everything that he just heard. He submits it to the gallery. And this piece is a mirror, but it's like a medicine cabinet mirror. Again, listen to our last episode. It'll connect. You open the medicine cabinet, and inside is a bunch of pieces, like inspired by the history of this man, who they call Candyman. And the piece is called "Say My Name," and it urges viewers to say Candyman 5 times in the mirror. Anyway, there's like a critic there, and she's like being critical.
Classic critic behavior.
Critic.
Oh,
So
wait, can we
anyway.
clarify? The Candyman in this is not the same guy.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I should have said that.
Yeah, it's a different dude.
There's
It's
like a
not-
lineage of Candyman.
Yes, it's a different dude. He has a different hook. It's like he's just like missing. It's like a
Oh,
prosthetic.
Yeah, is
hook.
that even a
It's-
thing? Like,
Well, I
why?
think it's
Well,
just-
for some people
that's
missing
just the
hands.
setup.
Yeah, but like you'd get a
It's not
prosthetic,
actually
right?
It is one.
Candyman
Yeah.
there. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
He's just a man that had a.
Yeah, he had a prosthetic hand.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like, why would you be given a hook for a prosthetic hand?
Wasn't
Why
a
would they
hook.
even put a hook on him anyway in
It
any
wasn't a hook,
situation?
It's one of those ones that
Yeah.
kind of open.
They have like little gripper. It was like
Right.
they're like it's not a hook.
Oh,
It's like a little.
I'm just ignorant and dumb.
Yeah, it's
I
like
did
a
not
little
know that was
thing
a
that looks
thing.
like that kind of. I guess. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's like
okay.
a little hook people, and it's the 70s, so they didn't have like cooler looking
You're
prosthetic
right.
hands.
Yep.
So, but it was just a guy who was missing a hand, but
Yeah.
they called him the Candyman. It's not the same guy from the first.
Right.
They kind of infer that he's handicapped too, like mentally disabled.
They do, yeah. They
don't
kind of imply
outright
it.
say
Yeah.
but they imply it.
hmm
So, so
Okay.
so
'Cause he
back.
never speaks. He's always like giving the kids.
He just
candy.
offers people
A little
candy.
weird. I mean,
Well,
to me,
yes.
It is weird.
So Burke, I'll expand on this. So Burke in the laundromat, when he's telling Anthony about this originally, he explains this whole thing about Candyman, how he was actually a very kind man who used to just give candy to kids in the neighborhood. And then one day somebody claimed to have found razor blades in the candy, and then he went into hiding, right?
Yeah.
And then when Burke screamed, that's when the police finally caught him and shot him. So in this story, Candyman is a martyr, obviously, which I guess he is in every version. But in this version that Burke is telling him about this Candyman, he is like a very literal martyr. This is the Candyman from the opener. So anyway, so Anthony's like talking to the critic or whatever, and she is passive aggressive. And Anthony leaves with Brianna. And then later that night, the gallerist and his lady friend are like cleaning up the gallery, and they're like putting away everything. And then they're like, what if we did it here? And they
I
start
forgot.
yeah, they're like, what if we start having sex in this gallery? And basically, and then while they're getting it on, his lady friend looks in the mirror and she's like, Candyman, and he's like, are you serious? And that's the line. I thought it was really funny that the line was, are you serious? Anyway.
He has some bangers.
No, he has a
Serious.
banger. I
Serious.
hope you kept in the banger that happens at the end of this scene, because I'm going to bring it up if you didn't.
I didn't write it down. Okay,
We'll
when we
get
get there. So anyway, obviously, she does it. Candyman appears and absolutely slaughters this girl. Just death, hooked neck. And then our gallerist friend is like, oh my god. And then Candyman also kills him pretty brutally. And also slices up the screen of one of the artworks.
It's interesting that he's invisible. Like the audience,
Right.
Yeah.
That's a difference
that
between this
scene.
version and the other one, is that only the characters can see it,
But
like
just
in the
for this
mirror.
scene, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
They can see him like through the mirror in like reflections.
Right.
They really lean into the spiritual part of Candyman and how
Mhm.
he's, you know.
Oh, you do,
And
so he didn't keep it in. He before he gets killed, the art gallery guy, he drops a fucking Jurassic Park reference.
what does he say?
As he's running away from Candyman, he goes, "Must go faster, must go faster."
It was so
It's supposed to be like a
dumb.
tense scene, I guess,
That
but it's
guy
like
was all
I don't
no
remember that.
subtext.
Why did he-
All his thoughts are coming out.
It's
That's so funny. I
it's
don't remember
such a
that.
bizarre scene. The whole scene is so weird. And
I
like,
don't remember that at all.
I could not. That was another thing. I'm like, I don't know what tone you guys are going
Yeah,
for
it
for
was
this
weird.
scene. I don't. It seems comedic, I guess.
Yeah. Well,
Very
yeah, I think
strange.
because, well, it's, yeah, I mean, overall, it's a very different, well, we'll get there.
Ooh, sorry.
Anyway, so Brandon discovers them dead the next day. This is traumatic for her because her father committed suicide, also a famous artist. Bad for Brianna. Anyway, I don't remember what happened in between here. I didn't write it down. But Anthony goes to the university because he's all obsessed with Candyman now and he's all inspired. Also, his bee sting has been getting worse. Has anybody remembered that bee sting I mentioned? Yeah, that comes up. So Anthony goes to the university and he's like, tell me about Helen Lyle. And they recover her like recordings from talking to Anne Marie and like the photos from when she was shooting that whole graffiti thing. This is from the 1992 version that they're pulling all this from. This is why Tessa said it was a sequel, is because it is consequential. So anyway, he's listening to it while he paints and his sting's getting worse. Then later, Anthony goes and meets with the critic from his show, you know, the one that was passive aggressive. And while he's at her house, actually, this is the second time this happens. This happens also in the university elevator, but he looks in the mirror and he sees himself as Candyman. And he's all freaked out, so he leaves. And then at dinner that night with Brianna and other friends and stuff, he discovers the critic died and was found in a pool of blood, and her husband is the suspect. And honestly, I still believe that it was her husband. So Anthony returns to Burke at the laundromat. He must live at the laundromat. That's the only explanation for why it would have that he goes back to the
always there.
laundromat and Burke is still there. You know what I mean? Anyway,
It could be his.
it could be.
I think
oh
it
wait, I
is.
think he does
It
work
is.
there. In my head, I was like, "Why is he always there?" But I guess they
He
do go into the
works there,
office.
yeah.
Well, they go into the office, and yeah, you're right. All right, redact that. So Anthony returns to the laundromat, talks to Burke, and Burke tells him the full history of Candyman, and he goes back to the OG Candyman, which in this backstory is almost exactly the same as the 1992 version. That he was an esteemed painter. He fell in love with the subject of one of his or the daughter of someone he was commissioned for a painting for. The father had a mob chase him down, cut off his arm, shove a stump in it. What? Cut off his arm, cut off his arm, shove a hook in it, and then cover him in honeycomb from the nearby hives. The bees come and sting him. Now, in the 1992 version, he dies from those stings, but in this version, they say that he dies after being lit on fire, and that the fire is what kills him, which I think is interesting
Yeah.
because fire and whatever. Anyway,
Because fire.
well, no, because fire in the original one,
I know.
like he dies in the original Candyman from the bonfire, but like,
Yes.
why would that even work?
I don't know.
But it does work if in this whatever, it's fine because he originally died by fire. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah.
In my head, that makes sense. Anyway, so Anthony's all freaked. So he returns home and he smashes every single mirror and he's basically having like a big episode. And Brianna's like, why are you smashing all the mirrors? I'm a little bit scared right now. So Brianna leaves and goes and stays with Troy. Remember Troy from the beginning? That's her brother. Also, in a completely separate area of town, a girl who went to this art exhibit. Remember Anthony's piece, Say My Name? Completely separate area of town.
So
A girl who was
pointless.
at this art exhibit, who was inspired by Anthony's art, is with her friends in the school bathroom. And she's like, guys, what if we played have you guys ever heard of Candyman? What if we played it right now? And so they decide to do it. And then obviously they're brutally murdered in the bathroom. Anyway, let's get back to Anthony, the actual interesting part. So Anthony's sting is getting worse and his hand is basically decomposing off. Now, if you're watching the movie, you'll see visually that this is a parallel to Candyman, who doesn't have a hand. You know what I mean? So like you start to connect the pieces here a little bit. But if you're just listening to me, then you are very far along in this movie, and you should probably just watch it. Anyway, he goes to the hospital because of this because he's like, hey, why is my hand falling off? And they're like, it's because that's not what they say. I was gonna say it's because you grew up in Cabrini Green. That's not what they say. But they're like, oh, we see that you were born here. And he's like, I wasn't born here. And they're like, yeah, you were. Now, again, if you remember that the baby's name is Anthony, then all of this is like, duh. But if you don't remember, then you might be starting to put the pieces here together of, wait, he's from Cabrini Green? And what year are we in? And what year did Helen do all that? Okay, well, maybe he's in the right age range. Regardless, he goes and confronts his mother, and he's like, excuse me, am I the baby? And she's like, yeah, you're the baby. Sorry for lying. And he's like, ugh. So anyway, Brianna goes to the laundromat to find Tony, but then she's kidnapped by Burke. This is where we think Burke might not be the friendly, nice guy the friendly guide, you know? Not really Burke. So she awakens. She's in a church area, right?
Yeah.
A church.
I think it's a church. Oh
area?
yeah, it's the church
It's
he
a
took
church?
a picture of from the
Yes.
beginning.
Oh, right. In Cabrini Green. And Tony's like he's not feeling it. One of his eyes is like glazed over, and also half of his body looks like honeycomb and looks like it's disintegrating and decomposing, not disintegrating.
Really cool practical effect.
Really
It
cool.
is really cool.
It looks great. She's like, also she's strapped down. She's like, why am I watching my husband die, basically? And then Burke is like, it's Candyman. Burke is like, guys, it's Candyman. He's here. It's the son, the baby, the prophecy. He's here,
The
basically.
chosen one.
Literally. And so he's like, it's time. And so he takes a saw and he cuts off Tony's arm in front of Brianna. Brianna's like screaming and crying. And shoves a hook in it. Somehow Brianna escapes.
Yeah, that part was a blur. That whole
Okay,
ending
I'm
was
glad
a
it
blur.
was. Okay, got it. I'm
It was
glad.
duct tape, so she used the
Okay,
pen.
got it. Because I didn't remember how. I just know that she did escape. So she escapes and then runs away, but then Burke and Anthony follow her. And she manages to stab Burke a lot.
Oh, yeah.
If you've seen this scene, she gets him. And then Tony's there, and he passes out in her arms. She's screaming and crying. The police come. Obviously, they misunderstand the situation. They shoot Tony a few times, I think.
Twice.
Yeah. And that's the worst outcome. So they take Brianna into the car, and they kind of start to peer pressure her into making up lies about her husband and saying that he was like a criminal or whatever, when in fact he was not. And so she does what any rational woman would do. She looks into the car mirror, and she says Candyman 5 times. She summons her husband, and he absolutely kills all the police in that scene. And then he looks at her, and he's like, tell everyone. And that's the end of the movie.
But
Except
it's
the
Tony
end.
Todd.
Yeah, he turns into Tony Todd.
Oh, yeah.
Little
We should say
highlight
that
of the
every time we
film.
see Candyman previously, it's Sherman from the beginning.
Yeah. Sorry.
They did
Yeah.
a digital version of Tony Todd's face.
Well,
I
it's
was
like,
wondering about that.
yeah.
But it seemed like every time the Sherman guy was there, it was digital too.
He did
You know
look kind of weird sometimes.
The scene where he was looking in the mirror and it was like,
Yeah, it does look a
why
little
didn't they
strange.
just do that practically? Just have the actor act it out.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It looks a bit odd sometimes.
Yeah, there's a lot of bits and pieces where I'm just like, man, this is very much a modern movie,
Yeah,
and
I
they
guess
did not. They relied on CGI a bit.
That's
would
true.
say.
I'm so surprised that you, not surprised, I guess, but that everyone here seems to veer negatively towards this.
No. Well, okay. I remember the first time I saw it in the theater, I was like kind of disappointed. I had high hopes, but then rewatching it, I liked it better than
I
the
kind of think
original
there's some good stuff
time
in
I
there.
watched it.
Oh.
Yeah.
You was-
Sorry.
that was-
I was worried.
I was about
Sorry, I
to
should've
stand
said-
up.
I should have said I liked it more than the first time I saw it.
Yeah, I get that. I think there's some good stuff in
Because
there.
there's a lot, like I said in my non-spoiler review, there's a lot that they tried to get at.
They also, sorry,
Ambitious, I guess.
yes.
on their part.
They also, even more than the 1992 one, really explicitly say what Candyman is, I feel
Oh
like.
yeah.
Yeah.
There's a scene where Burke, when he's talking to Tony in the laundromat, where he very literally, I'm not going to explain it, but like in like 2 sentences explicitly says what Candyman is for the community, as opposed to it's pretty clear in the 1992 version, but there's not a line literally saying it, and then it's very, very ambiguous in the
Yeah.
source material.
Yeah, we'll get into Burke's reasoning for wanting to bring back Candyman because I think it's wild. I think it's
Burke
really
is like,
weird.
it's time.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of this movie, but we'll get into more of our thoughts in a bit. Shall we jump into the research?
Sure.
Yeah.
Alrighty, so if you want to learn a bit more about the book and Clive Barker, check out last episode. Sibia did a great research section. I just have research for this film, so let's dive into it, shall we?
Mhm.
So this movie came out in 2021. It was directed by Nia DaCosta, and it was also co-written by Jordan Peele and Wynn Rosenfeld.
Oh, I didn't know he co-wrote it. I thought he was just like a producer or something on it. His little company.
Jordan Peele?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, he co-wrote it.
Oh, shoot.
Jordan Peele also produced it with his production company, Monkey Paw Productions. Shout out Monkey Paw.
Check it out.
So we talked about it last episode a little bit, but DaCosta became the first Black female director to have a film finish #1 at the box office. So that was like her. We were kind of confused last episode on like what it was.
What does that mean? Like, what are you number one in comparison to the other?
One.
In comparison to the other ones, it was
No,
opening
she's
against.
the first Black woman who had a #1 at the box office.
Yeah, compared to the other films that were out
that
that.
also hit 100,000.
So
You 100 million?
So it was #1 as in like it grossed the most of the other ones opened
Right.
that weekend.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
got it.
Whenever trailers are like, no,
Got it,
this
got
is
it,
the
got it.
#1 movie in America. It's just
It's
like,
talking about
yeah.
#1 box
Mhm.
office.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
got it.
Yeah,
Wow.
and she went on after that to do the Marvels. So say what you will about the
Oh, really?
Marvels, but that's a big deal.
Yeah.
Um,
The classic
And-
horror to MCU pipeline that exists.
yeah, that is an interesting pipeline. And
Her first movie is like a really nice indie drama.
oh,
called
really?
Little Woods. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I've only seen this one and the Marvels. And the actress who played Brianna,
Marvels.
she's in the Marvels. She's
She's in WandaVision. and
in
everything.
WandaVision. Yeah, so the connections are there. This film is a sequel to the original film, and it actually ignores the other sequels
Yeah.
that exist, which I will talk about later in this episode. But so production for this film took place in the Cabrini Green neighborhood of Chicago, where the original Candyman took place. But some of the buildings were torn down since then, so it didn't quite look the same. But when Anthony is going around taking photos, they are in the actual neighborhood. Prior to the creation of this film, there were talks of a prequel that would dive into Candyman and Helen's love story, but it ended up in development hell. And then there were some other sequel ideas, including a Candyman versus the Leprechaun. So
What do you mean by that? What do you mean by that?
So jumping off the
A
success,
6'5" man.
Versus a leper. I
That
need you
is
to
a
expand
good
on what you just
point.
put out there.
I love that imagery. Actually,
What are they doing against each other?
well,
What has
Well, there was
these
that
two
Are they
gentlemen?
fighting?
in the Hood movie. So
Oh, yeah.
Are they fighting each other?
Forgonic Arena Green.
Are they?
Well,
killing
it
other
came off the
people?
success of Freddy versus Jason. So
Oh,
it's literally just them fighting, and they're both like mythical creatures.
I don't know about that.
Beings, so I guess it would make sense. I don't know. It sounds bad. Even Tony Todd thought it was bad. He rejected the idea when he was presented the script, saying, quote, "I will never be involved in something like that. A sequel was oh. That was the end of the quote. I didn't put a quotation to end it. There you go. Okay. Another sequel was also considered, which would have ignored Candyman 3, and it would have taken place in an all-women's college, which sounds like a fun idea. But the idea was eventually scrapped.
It would have just ignored 3.
Yeah,
Why
so
just
it would have
3?
been.
you might have to fill us in on 3.
I will dive into number 3.
3 is rough.
So I guess it would have been taken place after Candyman 2, and I don't know. I think that idea sounds better than what we got with Candyman 3. So.
Yeah, probably.
So when Jordan Peele was first in talks to produce this remake, this is what Tony Todd had to say. You know, people were interviewing Tony Todd when it was just like in talks that Jordan Peele was going to be involved. Tony Todd seemed thrilled by the idea. He said, quote, "I'd rather have him do it, someone with intelligence who's going to be thoughtful and dig into the whole racial makeup of who the Candyman is and why he existed in the first place."
That's good. That's nice praise.
Tony Todd was all for it.
Yeah. Was?
Well, yeah, it was.
Oh, past tense. Okay, got it.
Yes.
I thought
R.I.P.
you were going to
Tony
say that he
Todd.
changed his mind.
No.
Okay.
He said yes to being in it, even briefly. So Jordan Peele was actually developing the reboot or requel, it's confusing, of Candyman even before he started working on Get Out. He said, "Its impact on me was seismic. It was a romantic nightmare that scared the shit out of me and black people everywhere. Though the original has some fascinatingly problematic notes, like Everything Ever." Was that yours? Did you add that, or was that part of his
No,
quote?
that's his quote.
Okay. It changed my perspective of what was possible in film by daring to represent blackness in what was, for me as a genre fan, the ultimate position of power.
By the way, that documentary you mentioned, the on Shudder horror noir, is very good. You should watch it.
It is very good. And I think it's also on Hoopla, so you can get it through your library. At least last time I checked.
What the hell is Hoopla?
Perhaps.
You don't know.
That's a site?
It's a library app.
I only
Yeah.
know about Hoopla from SpongeBob.
You gotta get
That's, like
Hoopla.
that's a site?
You gotta get Hoopla, dude.
I gotta
You gotta get on
plug. Am I
Hoopla,
missing
bro.
out on Hoopla? A free Hoopla plug?
Yeah.
Okay, former president of MGM, Jonathan Glickman, stated that, quote, "The story will not only pay reverence to Clive Barker's haunting and brilliant source material, but will bring in a new generation of fans." So he was working on this. It was like a collaboration with Monkey Paw and MGM. And I don't know, do y'all think it brought in a new generation of fans? Because that seems like a bold take.
I do. I'm on the positive side, so
Okay.
I know I'm in the minority right now, but like I thought, just take what I said at the beginning of the last episode. I had literally never heard of Candyman until my friend posted about the reboot.
Yeah.
So I had never heard of it at all, and I would say I am now a fan. So in that very literal sense, like yes, I am. If it's one fan, it's me.
You're
If
part
it's
of
no
the new
fans, I'm
generation.
dead. That's I'm a new generation of fans right here. So in that sense, yeah. I don't know that if you are familiar with the original, I don't know about that. If you're a child of someone who is a fan of the original, I don't know about that. Can't speak to that. But for me, yeah.
I mean, if we're talking about, did it introduce like a new generation to Candyman as like a property and as a thing? It simply must have. It's Jordan Peele's name attached to his neck. It's like Jordan Peele's next horror movie.
Yeah.
There was a lot of buzz around this sequel coming out. And like I said, when we talked about it last episode, Candyman was always like a horror movie that was just kind of like tossed in at the end of conversations about horror movies from that era, at least in my experience. But I, as somebody who didn't know much about horror, it was just like an afterthought. I'm like, oh, Candyman's really cool too. But like Jordan Peele attaches his name to a sequel of a thing. You better bet like the new generation of people is going to cling on to it and get hyped for it. So
And
probably.
I remember, there was a trailer, like a teaser trailer that came out during lockdown that was like really buzzy because it was the puppets.
Oh,
What do you call those kind of puppets?
like shadow
Shadow
puppets.
puppets, yeah.
Oh yeah.
And it was really just inventive and like it got everyone excited. The online, I remember at the time thinking, "Oh wow, that's so cool," and the puppets were depicting real life, like basically lynchings. Like one of them was the kid that was put in the electric chair. Excuse me, and yeah, it was really affecting like puppets.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah. It reminds me, have you seen that art at the Broad?
Oh, that's Kara Walker.
I know it's not the same thing remotely,
no,
but in my
no,
head.
it is. It's related. I was gonna
Yeah.
bring that up. It was in my notes actually. Kara Walker, she does that like it's
Yeah.
cut out and
It's shadows on the wall.
It's really like violent. It's not always violent, but like there's one about Briar Rabbit. It's Briar Rabbit mixed in with like slavery times, and it's just
Yeah. It's very effective.
very emotional and effective. So it's in that same vein. I agree.
Well, speaking of shadow puppets, DaCosta said that she and Jordan Peele discussed how they wanted to essentially show the flashbacks and all that. So they said, quote, early on about how much we would hate to do traditional flashback scenes or to use footage from the original film. We wanted it to stand on its own. So that's why they chose to go that creative route.
I think it was a good decision. Those little
I
shadow
agree.
puppet scenes are probably some of the best
Yeah.
in the movie. They're really
I
effective.
agree.
I
Yeah.
like them a lot. Good
Yeah, and
choice.
just quality wise, probably wouldn't work putting scenes from the original. It's,
Yeah. A little bit jarring.
technology is so far along.
Definitely. I was like, it would be cool if they had like a Clive Barker anthology series or something using different mediums like shadow puppets or stop motion. I'm like,
Oh,
his
dude. Stop motion would be so
stories would
cool.
work so well to like use different mediums.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's all my research. It was a rough it was a rough one, but I got through it. Are y'all ready to jump into the movie?
Yeah.
Yurt.
Right, let's dive into it. So, like I said, we're going to be pulling references from both the original film and the short story, kind of showcasing like where they got this idea from, why it's in this film. So, that's how it's going to be structured a little bit today. So, like we mentioned, Anthony and Brianna live in Cabrini Green, where the projects used to be, of course, Cabrini Green from the original film. That's where Candyman kind of became the urban legend that he became.
Yeah.
Unlike in the short story where it's Spectre Street, it's in Liverpool. Like we get into how different the short story is from the original film. But yeah, this is more focused on the original film. An interesting, fun little addition is that Anthony is obviously an artist, but he's also a painter, just like Daniel Robitaille was in the original film. Daniel being Candyman. So there's that like artist connection. I feel it that takes place in every movie almost. I think in every film, every sequel, there's like somebody that's an artist. It's very much a core thing. That's not in the short story. No, but it's definitely threaded throughout these films.
The
Yeah.
short story is about somebody appreciating art.
I was gonna say in
it's
theory.
like what it is. It's what she's doing. She's looking at the art
Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
and graffiti of like the thing. So it is a component of the short story, but I think they use that to tie into
The whole art world thing
Yeah.
that was sending me, because I have forgotten how
Yeah.
bitchy that woman was to his face
Yeah.
about his art, calling it derivative or whatever.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I was like, do art critics? I know they could in an article like critiquing,
Yeah.
but to their
To the
face,
face,
do
I
they
know.
talk to people like this.
Well, especially like the racial
Oh,
undertones when she's like,
no
"You
kidding.
people," like I forget
Oh,
what she
yeah.
says,
And
and
then
then
she
she
said
says
artists.
artists, yeah, which obviously is on purpose.
But it brings up the question because they're like I thought when I saw it the first time that the thesis or theme or whatever was going to be like, can black people gentrify a neighborhood?
Huh?
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because like they were kept talking about that they rebuilt the neighborhood, put these luxury condos up.
Yeah.
But for me personally, I don't think so.
Mm.
Even if they have money, I don't. To me, that's not gentrification necessarily.
You're saying because in the opening scene they're talking about they like tore down the buildings, they rebuilt the buildings, and then the
'Cause
protagonist like
the critic keeps saying, "Oh, they
Oh.
devalue the neighborhood." Then they tell these. Well, maybe she didn't say it. Who was saying that? And then they
Wasn't it Brianna?
I think
No,
it
I
was,
think
it was the critic.
It was the critic.
It was
She was talking
later.
about how like artists come in and sort of-
she's like,
'cause
"Oh,
they're
you
like-
go
Advantage
because you
of
don't
the
want to pay
cheaper
rent."
Yeah.
Yeah. Hold off for a few years and the neighborhood will get better. You'll get a Whole Foods. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. I don't know. It was interesting. It's like they.
But she's
touched on
talking
it.
to Anthony.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They touched on it. It was really interesting to me. But I don't know if they really dove into it.
I wanted
Too
them to
much
dive into it
past that.
more.
Yeah.
I was wondering if that was like a theme that DaCosta like wanted to touch on, and then it just kind of fell to the wayside a little bit because they like bring it up in the beginning, and then obviously with the art critic, and then it's like kind of irrelevant in the last act.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because it kind of switches over to the legend, and we need the story. These are the stories we tell ourselves to. I don't know, just explain tragedy.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like.
They do even kind of have like the setup to touch on that kind of stuff with Anthony because literally he like that is what he did. His mom took him away from Cabrini Green. He lived somewhere else, and then once Cabrini Green became a nice place to live, he moved back
returns.
to
Yeah.
when it was like a nicer place. So I feel like there is setup there, and maybe that is intentional. But you're right; they don't really get into it. But yeah, it is
There's
there.
multiple really interesting questions set up in the movie that I don't know if they went far enough into.
Yeah.
That's why I said there's lots of things going on. Maybe too many. Maybe we should focus on one or the other. I don't know.
Also, can we talk about his art exhibit real quick? Because how did they get that much space for his?
I was thinking
thing?
the same thing because I like obvious like different art needs different amounts of space. But like that was inside the wall.
Yeah, how did they do that?
It was another room.
Yeah.
Oh,
maybe they put up a temporary wall because they do that all the time in art.
that's true.
Oh, maybe a temporary
and
wall.
then it goes to the other
That
room.
would.
Another room, sort of.
There you go.
I thought
That's
that was kinda cool,
Yeah, but he
though.
still then took up like a whole chunk of the
He did,
gallery.
But he didn't take up
maybe that's why
the
they were
other walls.
upset. Maybe that's literally why they were like, "Are you kidding? Brianna sucks. Her husband just gets a whole room."
Thinking about if you were an artist, like, oh, you can't use this whole section. Oh, who took it? Oh, my husband.
Yeah, that is brutal.
Oh.
And would that count as nepotism? Or, no, that's like
Nepotism is usually a child.
yeah.
Well, no, but it is any family member, isn't it?
I thought so.
No, you're right. By definition. Yeah.
Whatever it is, it looks like favoritism. That's what it is.
It definitely does.
That works. That's a better.
But
That's
no,
a
I just
better
thought it
word
was
for that.
funny. It's like everybody just gets like a little painting or a wall. This guy got a whole room. And like
Well, but the person with the
a fun-
screen got a whole room too.
Oh yeah, there's a big screen.
They
on
just
the wall.
didn't use all the
Art galleries that
space.
do that.
You know what? And that's the person with the screen's fault for not using the space adequately. Honestly, this is a dub
Maximize
for
the
Anthony. Maximize the space that you're given.
Well, speaking of his art piece, kind of jumping ahead a little bit, since we're on the topic, the art piece is like a mirror, like the
like
what
a
is it,
bathroom
medicine
mirror.
cabinet
Yeah.
that you open and then you see references to Candyman inside and stuff. So obviously the mirror is a central part of Candyman. You say his name 5 times in the mirror and he appears. That rhymes. But also it's what Helen opened up in the original film. She opens up the medicine cabinet, goes through, and is in Candyman's lair. So that's what his art piece is referencing.
Yeah, they really lean into the mirror aspect of his character in this movie, like a lot more than I think even the other sequels do, which I know you guys haven't seen.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
The I think only Candyman 2 really references it with like the hand mirror, which we can talk about that later.
Yeah.
But like this movie like really is like people can only see him in reflections, and like they do honestly some cool stuff with like being able to like touch things through reflections, or like sometimes there's like bees on like a mirror, but it's on the other side.
I liked that.
Yeah, there was some cool
I thought that
stuff.
was
there was a
freaky.
moment
Yeah.
where the art critic, where she surprised him because he was like doing the thing in the mirror.
Mm-hmm.
And then when he was looking in the mirror at her behind him, he could see Sherman in the bathroom behind her.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't notice, or at least I didn't remember that from the first time. And I was like, oh my God,
Yeah,
that was a good one.
yeah, I agree.
Yeah, but they do.
Also, her kill was, or her death was pretty good.
It's
They
the
had a
best one.
drone shot or
It's-
something,
That
was
and you
sick.
could see it. Or like,
Yeah.
I know. Was that a bit when you were like, I think her husband killed him? What was in the synopsis?
I think her husband did it.
What?
What? How? You can
saw
see her
him.
floating.
You saw her floating in the air.
I think it was the husband.
You're crazy.
It's always the
You're
husband.
All right, going back to the beginning. Troy, which is Brianna's brother. Yes. They're all in their apartment together. The couples are chilling out. Troy tells the story of Helen, but some details are changed, kind of emphasizing the fact that like urban legends change over time, like a game of telephone. In this version that he is telling, the baby goes missing and Helen chooses to walk into the bonfire.
Yeah, you're right.
I'm correct?
That's
Well,
what it says.
yeah.
That's what he says?
He
Okay.
said, well, my understanding is that he's like, Helen is a crazy killer.
Yeah.
She kills a bunch of people, but the police can't track her down. And then the night of the big bonfire, the baby that's been missing, she brings out. She's planning to kill both of them. She brings it as a sacrifice to the fire, and then the townspeople manage to get the baby out of her hands, but she still walks into the fire. Isn't that?
I think
Roughly
that
what it is?
sounds right. I think that's like the story we're told
I
from
think so. From Troy.
Okay.
from Troy's perspective.
Which is interesting because in the original film, the whole town unites to basically honor Helen because they know that she did her best to save this child, right? But somehow along the way, this story changed and she became a villain, which is really fascinating.
Yeah. And it's interesting. I don't know. It's cool because I feel like, when I watched it, I got a little angry for a second where I was like, wait, that's not true. And I was like, that's so cool the way that they did that, the way that I got emotionally inflamed by misrepresenting the story of somebody. And, it's a transferable emotion. It's cool.
Yeah.
I thought it was good.
And
Do
you
you
see
think-
it told through the cool shadow puppets.
Yeah.
Do you think it's an intentional thing in universe to try to pin it on Helen so that way nobody brings up like the actual story of Candyman or whatever? Because isn't that something that Anthony's mom says?
She's
ta-
like, don't say his name.
Yeah, like don't.
Maybe.
But that makes sense for Anne Marie to feel that way.
Yeah,
Because Anne Marie has been traumatized by all of this, right?
yeah, but it's only
Also, it
what's his
probably
name?
indicates that he didn't grow up in Cabrini Green
Mm,
or hear
Right.
those stories.
yeah,
He just heard about this white woman who went into the
Right.
project and people died.
Yeah.
So another reference to both the short story and the film, the original film, is that Anthony goes to take photos of graffiti in Cabrini Green, just like Helen did in both the short story and the original film. Yeah, he's got that photographer link to both Helens, which is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know what? Also, it's kind of just hitting me. The look of Cabrini Green in the movie kind of matches my mental image of Spectre Street in the book, because it's not a big high rise anymore. It's like a bunch of like ground level, like little houses
Mm-hmm.
that he's walking through. I wonder if that was intentional. Or do you know if they were filming at the real life whatever's left of Cabrini Green, or did they make a set? Because it feels almost intentional.
Yeah, they did actually film there, but the high rises were torn down since the original film was filmed there.
Interesting, because that is kind of like in my mental, like I said, that's how I imagined, I guess, the Masonettes looking.
Mm-hmm.
The whatever Cabrini Green is in the 2021 version.
Yeah.
It's kind of what I pictured. So that's kind of cool how that works out, I guess.
Another reference to both the original film and the short story are the razor blade filled candy. They are seen in this, and it's a reference to, in both the original film and the short story, candy was left for Candyman as like an offering, essentially. But in this version, the idea is that this child was given this razor blade filled candy, and then Sherman Fields was blamed for that. I think he's in the walls because he went in hiding, right? So
Yeah.
okay. So razor blade filled candy in every single version. So unlike in the other films, there are multiple Candymen in this movie, like Sam mentioned. They're all kind of given backstories. Burke explains the backstories to Anthony. And I do find it interesting, though, because while it kind of like took me by surprise, I was like, oh, this is new and different. It did remind me that Helen also came back in the original film. She became her own Candy Woman, essentially.
Yeah.
So it does make sense that if somebody like dies in a brutal way, they can come back and haunt you. So I feel like maybe they might have gotten the idea of having multiple Candymen from Helen existing. I don't know. It's just a thought.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It is kind of weird that he never mentions her then as like one of them.
Yeah, maybe did she only come back for
Yeah, she just went after Trevor. And
Trevor.
that's it.
Deserved.
fair enough. Honestly, maybe that's all she needed to move
That
on
was
in
her
the
unfinished
afterlife.
business.
Yeah.
Honestly, yeah.
She's good.
I'll
Yeah.
take it. I'll take that explanation for sure. This is a fun little Easter egg. So the art curator that is basically chatting with Anthony, saying like, you need to do something different this time around for your art exposition, whatever.
Exposition?
I don't know. That doesn't make sense.
Exhibition?
Exhibition.
Okay.
Lord. So that art guy, his name is Clive. And
yeah.
I definitely think, I think that
The book that Burke was reading at the
I did write it down.
What was it?
It was a Clive Barker. Well, they might have made up
Oh.
the cover. I don't know.
Yeah, he was reading Weave World that was Clive Barker's. But anyway, art guy named Clive. obviously reference to Clive Barker, who wrote the original story that Candyman's based off of. So
Nice.
I do think it's odd how this shitty character who sucks is given the name Clive. Like, why couldn't you have done like someone better?
Yeah, it seems a little
it seems like
disrespectful.
a bad homage.
The dork who dies after doing a Jurassic Park reference,
Yeah.
you named after Clive Barker.
Yeah.
Maybe Clive Barker's a piece of shit.
Maybe.
I don't know much about
I don't
him.
know. Let us know in the comments.
No.
Do you like Clive Barker?
Has Clive Barker ever wronged
Is
you
there some-
personally?
But yeah, he did. He was reading Weave World, which is interesting. It's an interesting choice to include in the movie. I'm like, I don't know much about it, but why not have something more recognizable, like Hellraiser or Hellbound Heart or whatever? I don't know. Weird.
Can we go back to Burke telling the story about all the different Candymen? My interpretation, maybe you guys got a different one. Candyman did not get the name Candyman, at least in the 2021 timeline. He did not get the name Candyman until Sherman. That's what I
Really?
interpret it as. That, like, because he doesn't explain why he's ever called. Presuming we're ignoring 2 and 3, right?
It does seem like a modern, even though in the second one that 1800s kids named him that, it does seem like a
1800s kids.
modern moniker.
Yes.
Well, see, I thought that it was almost like people that live up to the hype of Candyman or fit the profile of Candyman get to be called Candyman, if that makes sense. So I thought that it was like, oh, the candy bit, like that fits Candyman. So therefore he's a Candyman, you know? Does that make sense? And so like Candyman did exist before and he had Candyman qualities such as giving out candy that would make him a Candyman.
Yeah, and he had, the reason I assume that is because like he had like all of the whatever mythical thing that Daniel Robitaille was. He had a hook for a hand, and he killed people. That's like it. He got nothing to do with candy.
But he didn't kill anybody.
Oh, sorry, right, yeah, but that's the story. Is that he's like a
He
guy with a
got
hook for a
killed.
hand,
Yeah,
right?
that's really it.
That's
Do any of the other Candymen have hooks besides Sherman Fields?
I don't know.
they don't say.
They don't really
You don't
go
know?
over
Yeah,
those.
they implied that there were others, but they don't really talk about them.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
their
think that's
deaths
up
are
for
shown
interpretation.
in the shadow puppets in the end credits.
Right.
Oh, right.
Yeah, but yeah, I guess they don't really go into them in too much detail.
and Sherman he's wearing like a big coat. He just
Yeah.
kind of looks
I'm
like
sure they did that on purpose.
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
Very specific visual.
I don't know. Maybe I'm misreading that, but I assumed.
I think that's an interpretation. It
Yeah.
wasn't
I
mine.
never really thought about why he was called Candyman. I just like accepted it.
It is such a
I never
bizarre.
really thought about the origin of it.
I like that they explained it in the 2021. I do see what you're pointing out, that that's the only one where it doesn't.
Candy is involved,
Right.
like
But-
in the origin of the person.
I liked it though. I
Yeah.
liked how they did it in 2021. I thought it made sense.
Yeah, I don't know. That was just a thought I had. That
Can
he
we-
got a different name, but
Can we talk about Sherman Fields? Like our thoughts on him as our main villain? I guess I'll go into my thoughts first. I was like, surely everybody in this town is talking about Candyman, right? I don't know. Maybe if you have a prosthetic hook arm, maybe don't offer kids candy. Like, especially if everybody's like looking for somebody
That's
who.
a crazy take.
What do you mean?
That is a crazy take.
I don't know. Maybe don't come out of the walls with.
Okay, I agree. Don't come out of the
candy.
walls, but you're allowed to offer kids candy. Just
Yes.
because you lost a hand doesn't mean you can't give people candy.
I know, but like specifically, you have an urban legend where this guy has a hook for a hand and is named Candyman.
But
I don't know. Maybe don't give candy.
But to Michael's
kids.
credit, this is where it comes in. Did that exist before Sherman?
What do you mean?
Like,
The
did the
legend.
urban legend? Like,
Yeah, he did.
no, but specifically giving people candy.
that's what I'm saying.
That's your question,
Yeah.
right?
It seems because
No, that makes sense.
Sherman, the thing that happened with Sherman supposedly takes place like
70s.
yeah,
Um,
and the 92 version takes place sometime in the I don't know in the 90s.
yeah.
So whatever happened with Sherman happened before that. So I'm
That's
saying
true.
did Daniel Robitaille have the
And
name
his story
Candyman
didn't involve
Candy.
at all?
candy.
No,
No.
it didn't. So that's what I'm saying is the implication that he gets this legend gets the name Candyman because
From
of
the
Sherman.
most recent one.
Yeah, like yes, that's what I'm suggesting.
Okay, I didn't think about it that way.
But then again, why is the 92
Because
version
that
not Sherman and why is it Tony Todd? Whatever, that's not.
No,
that.
but this answers your question as to why would Sherman go through the walls and give kids candy? Because
That wasn't a part of the
a
thing.
Yeah.
That wasn't a thing. At the
Okay,
time.
I'll take that then. That
Yeah.
actually makes sense.
That-
But now I'm left with more questions. Like, yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Anyway,
that
the
is a
sequels
good,
kind
yeah.
of get into it.
Yeah, because that
why
would
he's
also
called
explain
Candyman.
why in the 90s version they're like offering him candy because now they have the moniker of Candyman and they had the whole Sherman thing. So now razor blades with candy is a thing post Sherman.
Okay,
Right.
I like that.
I think
I like that
that's
explanation.
Maybe they called him
Yeah.
something else before Sherman.
Yeah, maybe they just have like a name for it. And then
Yeah.
there's a guy in the walls with a hook for a hand who gives you candy and he
They
kills
called him
you.
Handcar Hook Pandora.
Watch the previous episode, please.
It's solid. It's a solid episode. Okay. Yeah, I guess I didn't like this Candyman specifically because he felt more like the slasher I was expecting of the original. Where it's just like he does not have the gravitas of Tony Todd's Candyman.
He seems more of a victim than. Well, I guess they both are, but I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah, they try to make they explicitly attempt to make Candyman like a more sympathetic figure. So maybe that's why
he seeks justice
this one.
most of the time in this version.
Well,
When he kills teenagers, maybe
yeah,
not.
the bathroom. He kills
Yeah,
like
but they
4 teenage girls.
sucked, and
They
everyone
they
needs
were
to remember
bullies.
that.
Yeah.
Weren't they bullying that girl?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They did for
Get that. I
a
was like,
second.
Why are they kicking the door? Like, what is like the?
The backstory is they need to make you kind of dislike these characters
guess so.
5 seconds
Right.
before they die.
Before they
die,
so,
yeah.
they don't,
True.
so you don't feel bad about 4 teenage girls dying
Yeah.
for no reason.
Yeah.
Oh my
Right.
God. And can we just talk about that scene because that point seems so. It seems so pointless.
It is.
It seemed like a scene added just for the trailer. And then all the kills are off screen. Like, this whole movie just does not have the gore of the first one. It's so clean.
Yeah. If I said
It's
the last
frustrating.
movie had a lot of sauce, this movie is sauceless. This movie got no sauce.
But you know what? When he saws off
dry.
his arm, when Burke saws
that
off
was
his
good.
arm,
Oh yeah, that was
I
gross.
cringed at that.
Also, all the prosthetics that they did.
I
like,
thought that
what's
was gross.
It's like
phobia where people
trypophobia.
don't
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I was like, this would be bad for them.
I got the chills. I did
Okay.
from that scene.
Yeah.
Whatever.
If you're looking for gore, it's probably not the movie for you. Maybe
Right.
not. I mean, a little bit. There's a little body horror, sort of.
Yeah.
Like
The
a
bee
teensy bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's always like in at his
Yeah.
little bee sting. He's like pulling his skin away. That's kind of gross.
It's like
I was like, ew.
Yeah, that was tough.
yeah.
But
Like,
I
shouldn't
feel like
pierce
all
him.
the actual like Candyman kills are kind of whack. Except for the one cool shot they do like from far away of the art critic.
I thought
Yeah,
the
that was
police
the best
kills
one.
were
If that
kind of
was
dope.
All CGI.
That was
or
neat.
Was it? I don't know. Probably.
Yeah. Speaking of some more kills, which I also have some issues with. So the artsy folks, Clive Barker and Clive Barker, Clive, yeah,
The artsy
Clive and
folks.
the
Goth girl.
the
The Hot Topic girl.
yeah. So they're getting down and dirty in the art exhibit. And I don't know if this was purposeful, but they did seem similar to the couple that died from the first film,
Right.
where they were getting down and dirty and saying Candyman's name. I think that
yeah.
has
I
to
thought
be.
that was an homage. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah, it's literally like the same scene
Yeah.
basically. You're right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't even think about it.
Yeah, like I don't know the tone of this film because it's just so that death was so silly.
It's very silly.
The bathroom scene seems so random and out of place. And yeah, there was bad CGI in the in the art exhibit
Yeah.
scene
art exhibit?
with the when he claws the screen
Yeah.
and it just flaps over and I'm like,
Oh, it is it's yeah.
It
The
was
physics
not
are a little
good.
off. That's not quite right. Yeah,
Yeah.
but
I didn't bump up against that one.
that's like a tiny nitpick. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
like
Yeah, I didn't sweat.
I will say I think I mentioned this to you when we were watching the 2021 version. The thing that made me kind of like sour on it is when I had no experience with the first 92 film or anything. I had no idea what it was. The reason I wasn't that excited is I imagined it to be a guy with a hook walking around killing random people because I just associated him with Freddy, Jason, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And what I got was so much more interesting. And like, all of the kills that Candyman does in that movie are like purposefully designed to like progress the plot and Helen's like torment, and it's all like so intricate, and then this movie does the thing that I thought was like going to be lame about him. It just has Candyman kill some people because they need to fill some time, and he just like slashes some people with a hook for like no reason. It was the thing I thought was going to be Candyman, which is why I got kind of sour like midway through. I was like, they're just doing the thing that I thought that I don't like about horror movies, which is like they're just getting killed by a guy with a hook.
Just one kill after the other.
It was like
whatever.
It wasn't one after the, but most of the ones that Candyman does, they seem kind of frivolous. It's just like, we want a cool kill here. It's like, okay, all right, you can do that, but it just didn't grab me the way that the '92 film did. But that was a thought that I had. I remember talking to you about that. Feels like it sours me a little bit on it.
It seems all the sequels do that.
You-
They
oh,
all
yeah.
just become slasher
Listen,
movies. Or not I don't know if this is a full-on slasher, but it does fall into like just having kills for the sake of kills.
Yeah, I'm kind of like pooping on
I
the
also-
21 version, but the other two sequels are bad. They're way worse.
I'd rather watch this.
Yeah.
I also thought that it was interesting, the through line with Brianna
Yeah.
Yeah.
and her past. That's why I say they're doing so much, and
Yeah.
it's all kind of interesting, and I want to watch each of these individual
Yeah.
movies.
It was
But
interesting.
First of all, I don't know why she would date an artist after having a
Yeah,
father.
that
is-
artist
that is a
little
I thought
fair.
the same thing. That seemed a
Girl,
little,
what you doing? But
yeah,
uh,
avoidable a little bit.
it was kind of interesting because it
a little
seems-
bit.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Every artist dies a tragic death. This is
So
something we
true.
all know.
Well, it's like if you could just rule out one of the main problems there
Yeah,
by not dating an artist, right?
I wouldn't. But it was
I don't know.
interesting because it seemed like they were kind of going into her trauma.
I thought they were going
It was
to.
kind of interesting to me, but it's like they only touched on these things.
You know, this movie was a clean hour and a half, and I do have to wonder specifically with that plot line if they cut some stuff. We don't know
I feel
that,
like
do
they
we?
must have.
Does anybody
I
here know
didn't
if they
look
cut
up
some
what they
scenes?
cut out.
Okay, I don't know, but it seemed to me maybe they tested it and audiences were like, "Why is there so much on this storyline? It doesn't really affect
Yeah.
anything," or something. Because they
maybe.
showed one scene of it, and I was like, "This is technically enough to establish this," but it happens so late in the movie. It's not its own storyline. It's like this weird kind. It's like sort of giving backstory, but it's like when we're already in the second act really far in. I did think it was interesting though. In my head I like made a mental note. I was like, okay, this is an interesting way to introduce a whole second character's storyline. Like I haven't seen it done this way before.
It seemed like they were going to fully like swap perspectives
It
to
yeah.
like Brianna.
Because we didn't have hers before.
Yes.
That would've
Except
been
for when she
interesting.
discovered the bodies.
Yeah.
I would have liked that actually because Anthony kind of bored me after a while. Like his like slow
Descent into
descent
madness.
into madness.
Yeah.
Yes, I was just like, I feel like we've seen that before too many times.
Yeah, well, this is my
I'm
qualm
bored.
with artist movies in general. Like, I feel like the minute you introduce the art world to a movie, like, for example, what's that movie like The Goldfinch or Velvet Buzzsaw? Yes, or Velvet Buzzsaw or
Gold Buzzsaw.
Gold Buzzsaw. But there's a lot of movies that have come out in the last like 5 to 10 years, I think, that really center high art. That for some reason don't stick the landing in the third act. And I'm not blaming art, but in my head I'm like, this is the art world curse.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what you meant by the
Yes,
art world.
that's
curse.
what I said that at the beginning. If you maybe, so I guess this is a theory that exists only in my head. I thought this was something that we all agreed on before
No,
coming.
this is just a
I've never articulated this before, but that's in my brain. I feel like there's a pattern of, and I'm not saying all movies that involve art do this, but specifically in the last 5 to 10 years, this is something I've noticed about movies that involve art.
Yeah, I like that art world curse.
Art
I like
world
that.
Workers. We'll see if
It's
it
good.
exists.
Hard to portray art in a movie.
It is.
'Cause it's like
Yeah.
a lot of times it's just not good.
Well, yeah, because it's this weird like double lens thing where it's like
Yeah.
this is art, and then you have to have your characters explain their art. That's why Anthony very literally explains what his
Yeah.
art means, because we have to explain that to the movie audience because you aren't experiencing the art. It just adds this additional layer. Again,
It's tough.
sometimes it works. Some movies do it very well. Some don't. I enjoyed this movie overall, but I do think it poses new challenges that movies that don't involve painting and specifically modern art too,
Yeah.
don't really have to leap over.
Before we hop to the next thing, I do want to say, you mentioned like his descent to madness. I kind of wish they had a little more fun with that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Because there was like one scene where I was like, oh, it kind of like turned me. It was when Clive gets murdered or something and it's on the news and they mention his art piece.
Oh, and he's like,
Yeah, he gets happy about it.
That was good.
I was like,
Yeah.
oh,
I
I
like
was
that.
I was like, oh, this is a fun character turn. Is he gonna like start going like
Exactly.
a little like crazy about like trying to get his
Yeah.
name out there? And then it just kind of like goes back to
It towed the line where it felt boring.
I wanted them to like go full like he goes like kind of cuckoo like fucking
I
mad.
see what you're saying now
And
about the
he
tons of
doesn't.
different ideas.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
that is a whole other arc that they didn't pursue, that they could have
Would
pursued.
have been fun. Him
It's like
trying to
3 or
get
4
powerful,
interesting movies.
Yeah.
like him trying to find success in his art, despite all the tragedies that took place around it. Like that would have been sick.
Yeah.
I mean, there were 3 writers on this film, so like it seems like they were all throwing in ideas there, and
Yeah.
maybe
Did they all write together, do you know, or did they revise different drafts?
I don't know.
Oh, and then if they did that, they wouldn't have had to do the weird Burke like last minute turn that he just becomes a crazy villain. If they
Yeah,
just
he
made
could have
Anthony,
been the villain.
if
Yeah.
they made Anthony like
Oh,
fully
man.
the villain, they would.
Yeah.
Burke, we can
I
get
did
into the
not-
Burke thing.
I think it was meant to be a twist, but I didn't expect it, and I was a little perturbed
Yeah,
By which part?
by Burke turning out to be insane.
yeah,
He was so chill the whole
What
time.
set him off?
yeah.
Right, like what was
Yeah,
it?
'cause his
Presumably,
sister
he
died
was
in the
set off
past.
the whole time, but
I
he
guess
was just
so.
faking it.
Yeah,
Wait, his sister died?
in the bathroom.
They show a
He wanted
flashback.
to play the Candyman game with them.
Yeah.
And she wouldn't let
Oh,
them.
that just escaped my memory. I don't
Yeah.
know.
It's another
then-
like
and then-
half
yeah.
flashback
Okay.
little story beat thing that happens.
Yeah, his whole idea of like wanting
Although
to.
I love Coleman Domingo. He's great.
He's great.
He's a good
Also
actor.
a Walking Dead actor, but a spinoff.
Aw.
Oh, it's like he does look familiar.
He's been in everything.
Yeah. Yeah, it was just like his reasoning for wanting to create a new Candyman seems so bizarre. Like
Yeah.
first of all, there's a bunch of Candyman already. Why do you need a new one? And secondly, like he almost painted Candyman out to be like a good guy.
A savior.
A savior.
Yeah.
Yes. When bro is like killing everybody. Like he's not like targeting specific people. He goes after anybody who says his name.
You know, well, it's
so I don't get the
interesting-
point of wanting to make more.
It's interesting you bring this up because when I was like, Reddit searching on the original movie. Sorry,
Lay
Sibia, for
Reddit.
messing with you. Yeah, I was cruising. Me.
Literally.
They like one of the things that I saw brought up is like from people who had watched the movies, they were like, it's just a little confusing. Why? Okay, so like Candyman, right? He's a victim of a race-based crime, and the people he terrorizes are people in the projects.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
Okay,
Like
I
that's
have an answer for
weird.
this
You
one,
do?
but I remember thinking that same thing in the movie theater, but the more I think about it, the more I'm like, go back to the original.
Mhm.
The legend, or let's see, how do I word it? These are the stories that they tell among themselves,
Right.
to explain all these bad things that are happening. The story of Candyman is, it's a legend, it's urban legend. It's like, from the beginning of time, there's been stories told by, man to explain the weather, like why do
Sure.
we have day and night,
Mhm.
like stuff like that. So that's how I interpreted that. These are the stories they're telling among the neighborhood
Right.
to explain why these bad things, why that kid got mutilated in the bathroom. Oh, it was Candyman.
Right.
Gotta watch out. These are the things like Clive Barker's grandmother telling him these stories to keep him safe.
Yeah.
So
No,
that's
yeah.
how I interpreted that, but it's not exactly executed that great in the set.
Well, that makes sense.
Oh,
Like,
so you're saying those things that happened in the 92 version weren't ever Candyman. They were just horrible things that happened, and they said, this is Candyman. That's why they're so averse to saying his name 5 times, because they know that there is like a real guy. Is that what you're saying?
I don't know if it's that literal, honestly. I think it's more like...
well, you're
there's-
saying in a metaphorical sense,
Yeah.
right? I see that. That makes sense, but okay, so that works on the metaphorical level,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
But on the literal level, going back to Burke,
Why is he doing this?
Why would he want
Yeah, in that
Candyman to
case.
come back? Yeah, or because
It's hard to explain.
because that does make sense. That answers my question about like why would Candyman do that? It's because Candyman was is a character
Also, in the
for these
first
people,
one, he comes because she doesn't believe him. So he comes to...
Yes.
right?
He needs people to believe him to exist.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's something that
Right.
director Rose Bernard, I can never say his name right. That's what he talked about. Like
Yeah.
this villain is fueled or created because people believe in him.
Yeah, that's the other thing that really confused me about Burke's motivation is, at least maybe from his perspective, it's different. From our perspective, from the 92 film, Candyman has no morality other than to survive.
Yeah.
He needs to kill people, whoever,
It doesn't
to
matter.
exist. That is what he does.
Right.
Because he is
Even
not
Then
like...
he
babies.
becomes a
He,
story.
he
It makes
isn't
it more
really Daniel
interesting.
Robitaille. He is
Yeah.
he is a concept.
It makes it
He
more
is-
interesting than just a straight out revenge. Like, I'm gonna kill all these white people that killed me.
Yes, yeah.
Like, I mean,
Right.
That's what the 21 version kind of turns into toward the,
Yeah.
or that's like kind of the idea. They don't fully say, but that, I don't know.
Well,
It-
but Candyman. So okay, logicking this out, Brianna's
yeah. Let's break
Brianna's
this down.
sitting in this cop car. She's like,
let's talk
No,
about
yeah.
I'm gonna sick
We're skipping
Candyman
ahead a
on
little
these
bit.
people.
Yeah.
She summons Candyman. Would Candyman, 1992 Candyman, have killed Brianna?
Yeah.
What? That's a good point.
That's the thing. When she
Can
did
he
that, I
get
was
in the
wondering,
car?
Yes.
He can.
He
Well,
should be able
how?
to.
Because he told
Smash.
her-
First of all, he should. Whoa. Did not mean to say it
What
like
did
that.
you say?
Yes, you know what I meant.
Hold on.
I meant
He's a
smash
romantic
the
figure.
window.
First of all, smash.
Smash her
Now let's get into the scene.
He could smash the window.
He could.
Yeah.
What if he just
could've
Batman's
just
through the car
appeared in-
window?
Yeah.
He did. Wait, he was at the psych ward window, dude. He could have done that.
He could have just appeared in the car though, too.
Yeah,
he
true.
could have just
He could've
appeared right
just
next to her.
appeared.
And so the fact that he doesn't kill Brianna,
Well,
That just
he
makes it
tells
so
her-
confusing.
He tells her to
to spread.
the story.
tell everyone.
Tell everyone.
Yeah.
I guess they need one person to know
need
of
a
this
witness.
particular Candyman.
Well, this
That's
is
what
where we
Burke
get into
says,
smile
a witness.
logic.
Yeah, it is kind of smile logic at this point. Or it
Watch
follows-
Smile if
so
you haven't seen
frustrating.
it.
Yeah.
But see, that kind of makes sense for Burke because Burke sees his sister gets killed, right? And
Yeah.
Burke is allowed to survive.
So maybe these filmmakers are saying tragedy haunts you, and it
This is the
goes
same
down-
theme as Smile. This
Yeah,
is the
kind
same
of.
story as Smile, except Smile, of course, came.
Came out after.
2022.
Yes,
Yeah.
1 year later.
Oh.
Or like, yeah, I guess. Okay,
Yeah.
maybe we're
But
adding
they
more
don't
meaning
own
to
that
it.
whole trauma haunts you thing. Like it's
Yeah, it's
That's
that's
what I
a
know.
you know,
But the whole
Mm.
witness thing,
Sure,
like
sure.
that's a
the
specific
rules.
thing,
They
right?
don't really explicitly say it as or they don't do it as explicitly
No.
as Smile does. Like
No.
there's a specific. You see this trauma, it follows you everywhere.
But
But,
Candyman does enact justice in the second one that he
Yeah.
doesn't
But only in
do.
that one scene, really.
Right, that's the
Yeah.
only
Well, unless
scene
you count him killing the gallery guy because he was,
one could argue.
being an asshole, and then he killed
And
the
the critic. It is kind of
Yeah.
because Candyman never even tries to kill Tony.
See, this is what I was thinking.
wait, you-
Maybe, you know how in the first movie it looks like Helen did all these things?
Yeah.
I'm surprised they didn't make it look
Like
like
Anthony was
did all
doing these things.
Yes.
It kind of
His
seems
look-
he's kind
he's
of
very
guilty.
He's
suspicious.
connected with all
he
of
was
them.
in every. He had reason and
Yeah.
was in every location except for the school. They should have just cut that scene out. The school back.
Oh, yeah.
It's interesting that they kept that in
Yeah.
and not another scene of Brianna's. You know,
Yeah.
It seems
that's
so
all.
against Jordan Peele to do that. Like, he does not
Well,
rely
have
on
random-
stuff like
Fair-
that for his
to
horror
be
movies.
fair, it's like there's a lot going on when you make a movie. I'm sure
Yeah.
they aimed for something that didn't quite work out. But I mean, it is interesting. I enjoyed watching it this second time. Like really looking at it deeper than the first time.
yeah, I should watch it a second time.
I don't know. I'm just thinking of like now I'm just replaying every scene where Candyman kills somebody in the 2021 version, and I'm like, why does he do those things?
I think, yeah, for me, having Sherman be the one that's in the mirror, I kind of just wish it was Tony.
Yeah, it's like, how come he shows up and not one of the other Candymen
You'd
when the
think it
name
would-
is
well, yeah,
called?
you would think it would always be the most recent one. That
Yeah.
would make sense.
I
And then
guess
and
so.
then it would be her husband at the end, right?
But it
Or
is
would it?
him.
It is
At the end
him.
for a second, and then
It
changes
is, but
to
then it
Tony
switches.
Todd.
Yeah.
They just wanted to put Tony Todd.
Oh
in
my
it,
lord.
Yeah.
Lit-
They
yeah.
wanted
Right.
their
I get it. I 100%
MCU
understand
moment.
that.
They wanted their,
It just it doesn't. It breaks the pattern, so it's like confusing and it takes you out a little.
And
Maybe
like
we're thinking too
obviously,
hard about
no,
this.
we are thinking too hard about
That's
this,
the
but
whole point.
but
Yeah,
there are
yes.
some
They didn't think
franchises.
too hard about it when they were writing
There are
it. That's
some-
the problem.
Exactly. There's some franchises that do have all of this stuff connected.
Yeah.
So it's like, again, I overall liked the movie. I did. I think I'm probably the only one here who can say I would rewatch it. There were a lot of things I liked about it, but I do agree the fact that we're having this much discussion about the internal logic of the titular character is kind of
It's
wild.
a problem.
Yeah.
Compared to the short film or the short story where there is no backstory for a Candyman and we don't care. We just are like, he exists and that's cool. But this, they tried to give so much lore where it makes it way more
I'll give
confusing.
Nia some credit here too. Again, like I said, this is a clean hour-and-a-half movie. And every time I see a runtime that is 1 hour and 31 minutes, I'm suspicious. And so like maybe all of these questions are answered and things were cut. That's fully possible.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
But we're just going off of the cut that we've seen.
Yeah. I think
I didn't hate this movie. I have to say.
no, hate is a strong word. I didn't
I guess
hate it.
that's
There's
wrong.
much worse Candyman
I
out
thought
there.
it
Performances were good too.
Yeah,
Putting that
I
out there.
thought it
Performances?
looked great.
Yeah.
Performances are great.
Yeah.
I thought it looked great. I thought it was really interesting because we were talking about this in the car. The backwards, the mirror image of the title cards.
Oh yeah,
The
yeah.
MGM.
I have a
and the
story.
Braun.
I noticed that
mean,
too, and
I'll
I was
tell it
like,
after.
"Oh, is
Yeah.
everything
And
reversed?"
also, they
That's cool.
did instead of looking down on Chicago, they were looking up.
Yes.
Yeah, that was cool.
That was cool.
Interesting. It's really style. It's interesting direction and style. It's just a story that, like I said, I keep saying these are 3 movies that I really would watch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I also, like I said earlier, I enjoyed watching it and like picking out these things because
Yeah.
fun part for me.
Yeah.
Movies.
I don't know. I think the thing that is the reason why we're honing in on it so much for this one is because like this is the first one of the 3, the short story, the 92, and this one, where they try to make Candyman seem like some kind of force for good, like almost good.
Yeah.
And the short story, it's just a thing. It's
Mm-hmm.
just a thing that we have no knowledge of. That is, or he is rumor, he is legend. He's just a concept. The movie's like same thing, except he actually has a little bit of like a volition. He's trying to keep himself alive. He's trying to keep his rumor going. That's it. That's his whole morality. And this is the first one where it's like, he's kind of killing for the right reasons. And it's like, oh, he was? Since when?
I don't know if I interpreted it that way with these kills, but it makes sense the way you're putting it. Also, I think the Sherman character himself doesn't have as much. What's the word? Trying to think of the right word. Like in the original, he had presence. I don't know.
Gravitas, is it?
Maybe that's not really what I'm.
Swagger.
He had like drive. I guess that's not the right word. I'm trying to figure out what it is, but
Oh, yeah, I know what
Oh.
you mean.
it's a little more.
He's
I don't know if
passive.
passive. I guess.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't speak. Also,
Yes, he
he
does
doesn't say anything.
And I don't know if that would have made it better because I still would have been comparing it to Tony Todd.
You know
I don't
what?
know.
I just a thought here. The coat only makes sense for Sherman, right?
Why? Oh,
It's
70s.
like 70s
Yeah.
vibe.
Yeah.
That
Oh.
must be why they said it in the 70s. Because of what
Oh,
is the
yeah.
explanation for Candyman? Who
Yeah,
was
why
the
would
son of a
Daniel
slave?
have.
Why does he have like a fur
Nice
coat?
Coat.
Yeah.
True, actually.
So
No, but it kind of.
Well, he was kind of wealthy.
1800s too.
Yeah, their fur coats
Kind of,
existed.
They
But,
lived
like-
in good. They were in high
He was an
society.
aristocrat.
So
oh,
Time.
that's true.
Maybe
Okay,
he
maybe I
had
have
a
to
fur
take that
coat.
whole theory back.
now it
My
doesn't
thought
make
was-
sense in the sequels when he has a nice
leather
leather coat
coat.
for some reason.
It
Yeah.
does have a 70s vibe. That's
That's
what I
think
thought.
They did that on purpose. They were just mixing
Yeah,
eras.
Yeah.
maybe he found it in the walls.
Yeah.
Kind of going back to Burke as we've been talking, I do have, I guess I kind of made this headcanon on the spot. I do like the idea of, and I don't know if this is where they were going with it. Well, he experienced this trauma, and maybe he, as a way to process it, wants to share the trauma, and so he thinks he's doing a good thing. I don't know. I've been trying to like rationalize it in my head, and that's the only thing I can think
Right.
of where he's trying to spread the trauma.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah, Burke is the toughest character in this
How so?
version.
Just like his
to
motivations?
figure out, yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
He seems at first like the exposition character, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, he is.
Well, he's the guide.
I'll tell you.
He's like literally
guide.
the guide.
Yeah. But then it kind of falls apart towards at the end where you're
He's the
like,
villain.
Mhm.
Hold on, a timeline thing. when does Anthony get stung by the bee?
When he's taking photographs. around
Oh, but you're
Cabrini
asking
Green.
like in the story?
From the beginning, basically.
Yeah, like, and then Burke starts talking to him.
It's the same day.
It's right before he
right
talks to
then.
Burke.
And Burke, presumably his plan the entire time is to make Anthony.
Well,
anew.
yes, but he returns to Cabrini Green. I'm not put off by this.
Well, listen. When he says, "I'm Anthony," what's his last name?
Oh, he tells him his name,
He
and
tells
that,
him his name,
and then he's
if you
like,
look at his face.
okay,
Domingo clocks it.
Huh.
He's like, "Oh, he's returned." That's when
Uh-huh.
the wheels start turning. At least that's
Okay.
what I saw.
Yeah.
okay.
Having seen it twice now.
So the bee stinging him and
then
Burke
we get into
forming are
supernatural
two.
stuff.
They're separate.
How did he know
Yeah.
the bee sting was gonna do that to him and put him in this weird fly David Cronenberg type
Right.
deterioration? I don't know.
Whatever.
Right.
It's like these things were happening in parallel. But
Yeah, they
not
just
because of
happened.
each other.
Yes, that's what I was trying to get at. Is like, is there some
Right.
sort of no? But he couldn't have been like in controlling the bees. No, that could've
Unless
been
Burke is right and he is kind of this
destined
chosen,
to
yeah,
be. Maybe
it's kind of.
Might be
I don't
right.
think that's what the point was, but that's the only way
No.
that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
If Burke is 100% right, then the story does make sense.
Yeah, I guess.
100%, right?
Yeah, if he is just correct that he was destined to be
Yeah.
the new, and when he came back,
Which is
it's- yeah,
weird because he's supposed to be the villain, right?
true. You know what?
Also, it doesn't follow the logic
don't
because
know.
he didn't experience any trauma necessarily. Like these Candymen.
Anthony?
Yeah, these Candymen die by at the hands of others in tragic circumstances.
I
But
guess
as a baby,
Yeah.
he survived. So
Yeah.
maybe that's like the whole. That's why
Yeah.
he like in life becomes he's haunted.
It's the trauma.
I
He
guess.
almost, yeah, because like Burke, essentially he gave him the hook hand, and then Anthony ends up dying by the cops. So he's like, yeah, he essentially
Just like
kind of morphed him
Sherman.
into, just like Sherman.
Well, hold on. Wait, I think we're getting.
Because that's
some
the only
things-
version. No,
We're getting some things mixed up. Burke's explanation is not that you have to experience trauma to become Candyman. Your death has to be like unjustified and witnessed by somebody else, which is the whole plan. He like calls the police in the church, and he's
I
like,
forgot about that.
"Police! Oh my gosh!
Yeah.
I'm in danger. Come save me from this
He
guy."
like changes his voice. A
yeah,
bit,
and then the plan is the
But
cops are
he's
gonna come
already
kill
in
him.
This trance. I don't get the trance.
I don't get
part,
the trance
too,
either.
No.
He cut off his arm.
Yeah,
with
and he
little
doesn't
protest,
react.
like one tear.
Yeah.
How did they do?
See,
all
again,
that?
it does work if Burke is
If he's
right.
just
Yeah,
fully
Burke
right.
had to be manipulating it. How though?
know
How
this
did he
is gonna
control?
happen?
How did he
He,
force
it's the
Candyman to do
prophecy,
that
dude.
to him?
It's the prophecy.
He's the-
You
How
have
does
to-
he know a prophecy?
You have to listen to Burke.
Why does
okay?
this random
What you're not
kid that
getting here is that you have to listen to Burke.
Burke was right the whole
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
random kid met Sherman and then somehow just knows everything about Candyman.
Yeah.
And also
Via the
can
candy
also
he
work
ate.
with
This is my
Candyman
fan
to
fiction.
create
Ate candy and
a
learned.
new
He ate the
Candyman.
candy from Sherman.
It's like Adam and Eve.
It gave him the power.
He got the sense.
It's
The
biblical.
power
It's
of
like
what?
the fruit of good and evil or whatever from the Garden.
No,
of Eden.
exactly. It gave him the
It's- but
knowledge,
it's
the
candy.
prophecy
Yeah, yeah.
of Anthony.
This movie is a work of fucking genius.
Oh my god. We were actually not getting it, but now we get it.
Yeah. Now we get
Um,
it.
Yeah.
And
if you
episode.
had any
End of podcast.
questions
Bye.
about this movie, just listen to this section, and that's it.
There's just one more connection I found, and it's super silly and it doesn't even matter. But I noticed that in every version, the short story, the OG film, and this film, there is a dinner scene where they go to a restaurant
true.
and they
That's
talk
true.
about things. So that's fun. I
Yeah.
feel like it's a
That
fun
works,
story.
yeah.
beat. Yeah.
It's cool. No, it is cool the way that I'm a big fan of any type of media that like takes the beats of another and completely reimagines them. And I think that 2021 did that. Obviously, not all the logic points connected for us as an audience, but you know, it like you just pointed out, the dinner, that's interesting. The way that the bees are, that's interesting. Mirrors, interesting. The way that they completely changed that. You know, it's
Anne Marie comes back, and she's not
True.
only in the
Looks
original film.
almost exactly the
She
same.
looks exactly the
Hasn't aged a day.
same.
Like, it's crazy.
And of
Yeah.
course, Anne Marie is a character from the original short story as well. So it's all connected.
yeah.
Oh, and
it's-
Anthony is basically like Helen from the short story. He goes down there
Yeah.
to finds some inspiration for
That's
his art,
true.
and then
It
a
is
random
mirroring.
citizen from the location tells him about Candyman,
Yeah.
and he's like,
Yeah.
"Oh my god, this crazy stuff happened."
Yeah.
And it's
And
like
that's
the short-
objectively creative.
Yeah.
Like, you know.
I'll give it credit for that. I didn't realize that till just now. Yeah,
it's a good mirror.
well, because
of
I hadn't
the
read
other
the
movie.
I hadn't read the short story until
Yeah.
recently, but yeah, yes.
Sweet. Those are all the connections I could find. Is there anything y'all want to bring up about this film before we jump into the ending?
Yeah, I want to say what I said about performances again. I thought the
Oh.
performances, excellent.
Yeah.
Who's the lead actor? I forgot.
Yahya Abdul-Mateen.
Yeah,
Oh.
fabulous.
Great
He
job.
was in
Great.
the Watchmen remake, which I highly recommend.
That's
Yeah.
where I
Need to watch
recognize
that.
him
It's
from.
really good. Talk about an adaptation. It doesn't really take the story beats. Well, it just twists them from
Mm-hmm.
the graphic novel.
Mm-hmm.
Sweet.
It's really
Yeah.
interesting. And talks about race in an interesting way. I want to talk about the puppet show the puppet art.
Yeah.
What to call it?
The shadow
you can
puppet.
I think
Shadow
puppet show
art
works.
at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, like those are real stories.
Mhm.
And I would urge the podcast viewers, people, everyone here to look into those stories. Are kind of obviously very horrific, but they did represent real people,
Mhm.
real stories that lynchings that happened, and yeah. Anyway,
Yeah.
and I think that also showed the power of art too. Like those puppet, because like we mentioned, Kara Walker does something very similar, and I thought that was really effective.
Did we say that in this episode or last? This one. Obviously, we
Yeah.
said it in this one.
Yeah.
That wasn't in the last
But
movie.
yeah, you're right. They
Yeah.
have an exhibit of hers at the Broad. That's
If you live in LA, check it out.
Well, that was all I could find in terms of references about from the film, the original film, from the short story. So I have to ask, what do you prefer? The original Candyman film or this requel?
Who wants to go first?
Who wants to go first?
Hmm.
I guess I'll start. I think it's pretty obvious what my opinions are. I think the original film is just superior in a lot of ways. The tone, the feeling, the look of the original film, the score. Like there were so many elements that I preferred. Daniel Robitaille's Candyman. Yeah, the grit of the first one. I think better is better tied to Clive Barker's storytelling. I don't think this one was trying to reference Clive Barker a whole lot. But yeah, I think the first one really does have the feeling of Clive Barker's writing more so than this.
All right, well, I guess I can go next. I very clearly preferred the first movie to this one. Not this movie's like bad. I just think there was a lot of ideas that it didn't quite execute on in a way that I found compelling. Whereas I feel like the first movie kind of hit the mark just about every time. I feel like it really nailed what it was going for in a more effective manner. And yeah, some things you touched on. We talked about it earlier. We've talked about it a lot. I think we've dumped on this movie enough. It's like feels like we're shitting on it, but it's really not that bad. It's pretty well shot, incredibly well acted, very good performances. I just feel like it doesn't land quite as hard as I would have liked it to. Even though a lot of the topics it touches on, I feel like are ripe for a really compelling story. I feel like maybe it tries to reach a little bit too far. It doesn't quite land what it wants to. But yeah, that's my opinion, my reasoning.
Like I said in the last episode, I think when I watched the 1992 one, like there are things that are uncomfortable, and I feel like Jordan Peele's quote is good for several reasons. One of them is like there are things in the original that are like problematic, I think were his words, and like weird and like you know, that make it that weaken it from being in comparison to, I don't know. It's what I like about the original are the filmic qualities. Like you were talking about the bees in the last episode, and I love the bees.
I love the bees.
I love the bees.
You turned into Donald Trump for a second. I love the bees.
I love
What was
love
that?
the bees. And
Tiny bees.
we need the bees.
So
I
the best
love the
bees out of
Well,
any
you know,
film.
like you know, we talk
Cutest
about
little bees. Sorry.
they're 12 hours old.
Babies.
I've been saying,
I love
was saying that.
So stupid. Right? Sorry.
There's a lot of like film, like practical qualities. Like practical is the real word I'm looking for here, because it's
Right.
like there are a lot of things that like filmically distinguish this from other movies that make me really like it, and that's great. And the new one, I think that they did a good job modernizing. I think that they transposed adequately the themes that in a way that would make sense for a modern audience. I do agree that they might have overextended themselves for an hour and a half runtime. This is a movie that, with all the things that they wanted to introduce, if they wanted to make it 2.5 hours or 3, they could have. I wouldn't have watched it, but they could have. And but there were a lot of different things they were trying to introduce. It's kind of weird because I think the way I would rank it for me personally is I do put 2021 Candyman last because of those logic issues that I can't quite get over. I put The Forbidden above it because of its ambiguity, and then I would put the 1992 movie as best because of those filmic qualities, not because it's a masterpiece necessarily.
Yeah, I agree.
That's fair.
That's a solid list.
But but the reason I said that is because I feel like you can't really. I don't want to praise the 1992 one too hard without acknowledging some of the weird parts, if that makes sense.
Do you know specifically what Jordan Peele was referring to? Is it
I
just the
wonder.
white savior thing?
That was the thing that struck me the strongest from watching, specifically with the baby and how she, in the final scene, I was like, this is a little, even they seem like they're aware of it when she says that line about like, of course the cops come as soon as the white woman's in trouble, and like, yeah.
They like lampshaded a bit.
But the ultimate like thing that we derive from that movie is that she saves this black community, is it not? That's the whole scene with the funeral, right?
I've been thinking about this as well, because after I've been struggling with that like white savior thing that first movie kind of goes into. I think it might just be like a different perspective of the time, because 90s was a time about we should all, it was almost like a weird, not hippie-ish mentality, but like,
It was like
we're
a
all
colorblind era.
yes. So it was like we're all one. We should all be together.
Quote, unquote.
So, yeah, that was like the vibe of the night, like the X-Men. If you know anything about the X-Men, the 90s X-Men, they're like, let's get one of every single race possible and put them on the team, and they're all equal.
Right, okay.
And they like the whole mutant as ethnicity or like race thing. They were just like, what if we just make ethnicity and race as the ethnicity and race thing? And they just made the whole team different races. And they know like metaphor, they're all different cultures and whatever, and brought them all together. That was 90s X-Men. So like, I feel like at the time, maybe the message wasn't supposed to be white savior, even though it kind of seems like that now.
Right.
Maybe they missed the mark, but I feel like maybe what they were going for was white lady goes into an area where she clearly doesn't like respect or understand the culture.
How she walked up in there.
Yes.
Too. Come on.
True.
I think they knew what they were doing.
Yeah.
You think so?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I mean, and I do think it's important, obviously, to not apply modern principles to past work. So, maybe this is my misinterpretation of it, or just like my modern lens looking
But
at
that
it.
means they might not have landed it. And now we see that as like, no, they fucked it up. And that it seems like a more white savior-ish ending. Whereas maybe what they were going for, because literally the whole community comes together and is like, it was
She
okay.
saved us from Candyman.
Yeah.
Yay.
We're all one now. Like, is like kind of the vibe of the
Right.
ending, which seems very like 90s to me.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe
You're
that's what they
right.
were trying to go for.
I don't know. I
But,
don't know
yeah.
what Peel meant. To me, that was the thing that I would think Peel meant, but I
Yeah, it
guess
would
we'll
be
never know.
interesting to know
Yeah.
specifically what he meant.
Yeah, I have a feeling that maybe they were just reading the short story and they were like, we probably shouldn't have a baby burn in a bonfire, so let's have her save him.
Have her save the baby instead.
They could have been
That's
as
a good
simple
point.
as that. It could have been as
That's
simple as
true.
that. We don't know.
Good point.
Yeah. I don't know.
Might have been a bit too taboo.
As a white director, so
Yeah, and that's
it would be
another.
interesting to have seen it directed by a black director.
Yeah.
But we didn't get that. So, but
I guess we'll never know intent. I don't know.
yeah.
I don't know. That's just how I felt
But
watching
also,
them.
you can put your own interpretation on art and movies. And
Yeah.
that's fine too.
Correct me if
perfectly
I'm
valid.
wrong. I feel like I remember him talking. It's been a while since I watched that documentary on Shudder, where he's talking about how it's cool seeing representation as heroes and villains and stuff. I talked about that last episode, but I think maybe he mentioned something about having this black villain and then the white woman and like the power imbalance or like the power over her. If that was something he had an issue with, I can't remember. I feel like he talked about it, but if not, I'm not going to put words into his mouth because I can't remember.
Right.
I
Maybe-
feel like there
hey,
was something in
People
that
in the
documentary.
comments. Jordan Peele, if you feel inclined to comment
Yeah.
and explain what you meant by that, we would love to hear
Let's
it.
tag
Write
him.
to Dreadful Digest.
I mean, we already talked about the first movie, but I thought that was a good uncomfortableness to play with in that movie.
Mm-hmm.
Because he wasn't just a villain; he was also sort of seductive too,
Oh yeah.
and that was an
Yeah.
interesting kind of layer to it. It's got to be the casting of it played a big role in that. Like the two of them had really great chemistry. I think for the preference, I think I prefer the 92 version, but I would watch the 2021 version again. That's my I don't like to rate things stars because I always like go, well, maybe I'll give it another star like later on. I'll think about it some more. I like how much I thought about this movie. That for me, that's a good indication that like if it provokes some thought in me. If I dismiss it, I'm like, that's a bad movie. I want to think about it, especially this kind of movie. If you're gonna be if you're doing social commentary, let's like really think about it. But yeah, I don't know if they necessarily landed it, especially the last act of it.
Yeah.
Cool. I have a short, brief this versus that, and then I'm going to talk about the Candyman sequels very briefly because we've been talking for a long time.
Oh,
So
Jesus. All right. Here we go.
let's get through it quickly.
Yeah.
This versus that. Who do you prefer, Daniel Robitaille or Sherman Fields?
What do you mean?
Daniel?
To run into?
Daniel, yeah.
Daniel.
Wait.
As a
Sherman
Candyman.
versus Daniel.
What do you? Okay, again. What do you
Todd.
mean? Like versus?
As your favorite Candyman.
Oh, like as
They're not
like a
fighting
fight?
in this time. No.
You have to clarify these things.
Oh my gosh.
If they were fighting, for sure not Sherman, dude. I don't think he'd win. But
Oh my
my favorite, Daniel.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, I think we're all in agreement.
I mean,
Daniel
it's-
definitely.
I mean, yeah.
Sorry, Sherman.
You set him
I
up
like
for that one. You
Sherman,
set him
though.
up for that one. That was fucked up.
Yeah.
That was messed up.
was
Poor
cruel.
Sherman.
He's watching
Yeah.
us from the mirrors right now. He's mad. Alrighty. I don't have any of y'all seen Hellraiser?
No.
Nope.
Okay, this is for you.
This couch, can I get some skin, dude? That's what I'm talking
You will.
about.
This year we're gonna cover Hellraiser. I'm very excited.
I can't wait to hear it.
Yeah.
You want to come back?
Sure.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
So who do you prefer, Candyman or Hellraiser?
So different. Okay, let me think.
You can talk. You can think of it through the characters or the storyline, just whatever.
Oh, Hellraiser's pretty good though.
Really?
Yeah.
All right.
It's got some
excited.
great practical effects.
Candyman.
Okay.
Pressed about it, but they're both pretty good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've seen both, but it's been a while since I've seen Hellraiser, so I feel like I can't
I think
speak on
A
it.
little biased right now.
A little bit,
Production
yeah.
wise, I think Candyman's better. Like, there's some issues with like
Oh, really?
the actual filming that I'm like, why'd they do that?
Good to know. But Hellraiser does have a really cool final girl. I think she's fun.
Mm.
Alrighty. Let's briefly get through these sequels because
Yeah.
I watched Farewell to the Flesh, which is the second one, and Day of the Dead, which is the third one. So Farewell to the Flesh takes place in New Orleans, which is revealed to be the birthplace of Daniel Robitaille, which how he ends up in Chicago. I don't know. Also, his grave is also in New Orleans.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
no.
So he lived in New Orleans,
And apparently died
And-
there.
not in Cabrini
I can see
Green.
how he was
Yeah.
born there and ended up in Chicago.
Yeah.
No, but his grave is there. Unless it's like an unmanned, like it's just like an
Well,
empty
they dropped the
grave.
ball on that one.
Yeah. I don't know.
I don't know about all that. That doesn't make any
It was
sense.
the
I don't-
90s. They were like, just
Maybe
go
it's
with
not.
it.
It's not considered canon? Question mark anywhere? I don't know. Anyway, Purcell from the first movie actually shows up in this sequel.
No way.
He
He
is.
carries
that guy.
over.
Yes,
Long
the
hair
exact
guy.
same
Of
actor.
all people?
Yeah.
I know.
He's like the first scene
He
of
was
the
such a
movie.
dick in the first one.
Yeah, he's doing this book tour. He has this really cool book about Candyman that's like a reflective cover that he says the name 5 times, of course, ends up dying.
Okay.
It's
Could've
a
seen
cute-
that
it's a
one
cute bit.
coming.
It's a cool book. I want that.
I think it's a
book.
cute bit. The movie
Yeah.
is weird, but the fact that he's making like a profit off of it, but the book has like a reflective cover and like a tinfoil like cover, and you can say the name. It's cute. It's a cute bit. That's a
Clever.
good idea.
Yeah, yeah.
Michael likes the bit.
It's a good bit.
He's a bit boy.
Yeah.
Briefly, basically, this guy Ethan gets blamed for Purcell's murder. Ethan Tarrant and his dad were trying to learn more about Candyman. The dad ended up dying. And anyway, Ethan gets blamed for the murder. His sister is trying to prove. Yeah.
Are they black?
No.
Okay, just curious.
Yes. So his sister is trying to like prove that he didn't do it, and then goes on this discovery, basically finding out that she is related to Candyman, like a long distance relative. So I guess Daniel and his lover ended up having a kid. Well, she was pregnant, right? So she had a kid, and then several generations later, we have Annie and Ethan, who are related to Candyman. So they're blood related. Yeah, and in this film, we also get flashbacks showing Daniel's death. So we see all that, and we also get, yeah, it's brutal. We also get the kid saying the word Candyman, and that's how we get the name. He's calling him Candyman because there's honey on him.
This kid is looking at him, and he's like, Candyman.
Yeah, he says it just like that.
He's like,
Seductive, like, ooh.
Candyman.
No, he's like on the flashback. He's just me and Tessa watched it. I watched this as well. It wasn't just Tessa. He's like on a.
You guys watched it together.
No, I watched it in separate rooms.
Okay, because I was gonna ask why I wasn't invited. But that's okay. That's fine.
No, we actually did watch it together.
Everyone, look at this rejection that's just happened. Clock this.
No, but he's like he's like on like a log. They like cut
He's
his arm.
laying on a
He's like
log,
lying on
yeah.
a log. They like cut his arm off and they cover him in honey. And then there's just like literally like a crowd of people all like pointing and laughing at him like, ha. And then a kid is like, Candyman. That's it. I think I could be misremembering. I think that's like.
Why would he do that?
There also, there are kids in the crowd watching them cut this guy's arm off and put a hook in it, and there's just kids there,
And they're like,
and they're like into
Candyman.
it. They're like,
And then they all start calling him Candyman.
Yeah,
Like the
yeah.
whole crowd starts chanting Candyman.
That's such. Okay.
that's the.
Whatever.
I don't know. We
I
get
hadn't read
different
it.
backstories,
Yeah,
so
okay.
maybe this is just false, like some other. I don't know. We don't know, because it also in the third one they kind of changed the backstory a little bit. But anyway, not a good movie. The acting is bad. Candyman is just not as cool, not as like powerful of a figure, and yeah, kind of boring. Moving on to Day of the Dead, which is the third Candyman, it's interesting because this Candyman takes place in 2020.
Really?
Yes, so it
What?
technically takes
it
place
came
a
out when?
year after it came out. I forget when it came out.
It's like 90s, right?
It's still 90s.
So it's in the future by 30
It's-
years?
No, so Candyman 2021 takes place in 2019. So this takes place a year after the events of
does
2021.
Candyman 2021 belong in the category of movies that were set in 2019 to avoid showing masks?
No, they filmed it before COVID, but it got pushed.
Yeah. Yeah, it kept
so
getting
so
pushed.
it was always supposed to take
Yeah,
place
I
in
think it was supposed
2019.
to come out 2020.
Have you seen that about challengers, like movies that are set in 2019 to not explain the pandemic?
Oh, really?
Oh, no.
I didn't even notice
I don't
that.
know. I'm making things up. But
I'm lying.
No, I'm not
But
lying.
this
I'm
was
just
like
like,
a theory people had.
yeah, this is something. This is
Okay.
something I've seen people say about
just
challengers because
easier.
otherwise there's no reason for it to take place in
I like that.
2019.
Because
Okay.
I hate seeing masks in movies. I hate it.
Yeah, but otherwise it's like, why would this modern movie that is current not
Take place
show,
in 2019. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I got
Or
you.
not show any reference to a pandemic.
Gotcha.
Anyway, just a fun little factoid. It basically focuses on the daughter of the main character from the second one. So Annie, which is related to Candyman, this focuses on our daughter Caroline, which we see at the end of the second one. So they are tied together.
And
there is-
Caroline is the name.
Caroline, yes.
Caroline is the name of Daniel Robitaille's like lover.
Oh.
So
Good, yeah, good
Annie
point. I
names
forgot
her
about
daughter
that.
after that person because she learns about this whole past and like honors her.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, got it.
So names her kid Caroline.
Copy.
Yeah.
Great.
great
How-
something.
Who knows
Yeah.
how many greats? Yeah,
Yeah.
something like that. Yeah.
Great.
There is another art exhibit
Thank
in
you.
this film. They actually get access to Daniel's original paintings that he created
they
as an
good?
artist.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, they were good.
They're
He had
good.
like
Portraits.
self-portraits.
Okay,
They were pretty sick.
Yeah.
She ends up saying the name 5 times as usual. She kind of gets pressured into it by her partner. He starts killing her friends, her partner, who is also a cheater. Sorry.
Classic.
Trevor
They
reincarnate.
keep doing that. They're
Yeah.
bad.
Wait, but so Candyman kills Trevor reincarnate?
Yes, he kills the partner and his girlfriend or lover or whatever.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Framing her for the murders.
Nice.
So basically, just Candyman again, the first one.
He kills her with bees too, doesn't he?
Well, then how
Yes,
could she
that
be
was
framed?
actually a cool. Yeah, that was pretty
He
crazy.
doesn't do like a hook kill for this one. He like 6 bees on her.
Yeah.
She gets like covered in
man.
bees. She's
I
like
want more of
naked,
that.
covered in bees. It's
I want
bad.
more of that. I want more bee kills.
Yeah.
Bee kills.
Be killed or anyway. I don't. Okay, I got it. So, long story short, she ends up in an abandoned building searching for the paintings because they were stolen from the art exhibit. She thinks that this gang, or she wants to prove that this gang had something to do with the kills, or like, so she's not being framed for it, basically.
Okay.
And this
But
gang,
does she know that it's Candyman? She's trying to frame this gang?
yes,
Oh,
yes.
Yeah.
It's been a
wait,
minute since I've
I'm
seen the movie.
sorry? Okay.
She,
It takes place in LA, by the way.
It does.
it does take place in LA.
So she's like, I gotta pin this on these people.
Yeah.
Okay, if I'm remembering correctly, she and this guy that were part of the exhibit together, they are trying to find this gang because they think that they. Oh my god, I'm totally blanking. They think that they stole the paintings or killed people, and then she starts discovering, oh, actually, it's Candyman doing this. But I'm still gonna find this gang to find the paintings, and then this gang ends up being a cult that worships Candyman.
No way.
I could
She's on the
totally
right
be
people.
butchering this. I don't remember. Did you watch this movie?
No, I haven't seen this one.
Okay, so
I
if
missed
I'm
the
wrong,
ending. I left
then,
before the ending.
then write in all caps how wrong I am, please. I love that when people
I like
do
the
that.
idea of a gang cult.
Yeah.
Oh, it is fun. They
Someone needs to
love
explore this.
Candyman.
Yeah.
They say Candyman 5 times. Of course, Candyman kills them all.
Wait, but they worship him.
Well, he doesn't
Did
care.
they? Well, he should. In the original, they all worship him, and he doesn't kill everybody. He just
True.
kills one person.
He kills a baby.
He kills a baby. Why didn't they give him a baby?
Just give him a baby.
Yeah.
Just give the guy a baby.
Anyway.
What's the problem?
Yeah.
In this version, she ends up killing, in quotes, because you can't really kill Candyman, by slashing his artwork. Basically, it's kind of a boring film. Not really that memorable, obviously, because I forgot a large portion of it. The acting was a little better, so I did like that.
The third compared to the sequel?
Yes, it was
Huh.
better than the last one.
The second acting is real
It was
bad
really
all the way through.
atrocious. Yes.
Also, I just realized you said Candyman dies in every single Candyman movie.
Yeah. In
I-
the second one, I forget, they go back to the plantation house.
Except for
There's a plantation
2021.
house.
Oh yeah, he's cool.
Doesn't
He's good in
Yeah,
2021.
but
True.
he's enacting justice in 2021.
yeah.
He's a vigilante hero. He is.
Yeah, he is in 2021. Kind of.
We don't want him to die.
No, in the second one, they
I forget how they
introduce
killed him.
they introduce the mirror that his soul is trapped in.
Oh
Whoa.
yeah.
Yes, there's like a hand mirror that. Oh,
Caroline had
it's
Coraline.
Caroline's mirror. It's like,
Oh.
yeah, it's when after they have him like all mutilated and beat up, they like show him his face in a mirror and they're like, say your name, and he's like, my name is Candyman or whatever, or something like that, right? Isn't that how it goes? And then now his soul is like trapped in
You're
the
right.
mirror.
Wow.
Yep.
Yeah, and now
that's
that's
interesting.
that's like the last piece of like
That
him.
is interesting because we don't have an explanation for the mirror. We don't have like.
Yeah, they try to
You know-
explain some of that stuff
Okay.
with that,
Okay,
and
okay.
then so I think at the end, what's her name? Annie.
Yes.
She like finds the mirror and breaks it.
Breaks it.
And
yeah.
then Candyman shatters in bad CGI. He turns into bad CGI
You can
glass
imagine
and he
it.
shatters.
You can imagine it clearly in your head.
What you're thinking is probably what was on screen.
Yeah.
But then I guess he's back for the third one because yep.
He's back. It's better
Who
than
cares
ever.
about the mirror?
What's interesting though is that they do introduce the idea in I forget which sequel. They show flashbacks again. Oh, it has to be the third one. Has to be the third one because they show him being burned on a tree. And so I'm like, did the 2021
Oh.
version take that from the third one? I don't know.
That's right.
Wait, what do you mean?
Because in the previous versions, he died by bee sting, but in
Yeah.
the third version, he died completely by being burned on a tree.
Which is what Burke says in 2021.
Yeah.
He adds the burning
That
part,
yeah.
which isn't in any of the original versions.
Well, no, but in the original, he dies by fire.
At the end.
Yeah.
Oh, in the
We're
pyre,
talking
yes.
about in
Yeah.
the
in his
lore.
backstory,
Mhm.
like how he
Right.
The third
got
one
killed
adds
by the
burning.
mob.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
if you think of it like we're adding Candyman, then in theory the original
Yeah.
would add that to the lore. Maybe.
Yeah.
I feel like it could be pulled from either.
Yeah,
is
you're
my
right. It could be.
conclusion.
Okay. Yeah.
they can get away with changing it because it's
It's a story.
a story that
Yeah.
people tell.
Exactly. Yeah. And like that happened to one of the Candymen.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
So those are the sequels. Now you don't have to watch them.
Yeah, you don't.
I know y'all were really wanting to watch them.
If you want, get some friends together. Get some beverages perhaps, and have a good time. But they're
Yeah.
not great.
They're
films.
on Max.
Yeah.
So that is our episode on the 2021 Candyman. Next episode, we're going to be looking at The Monkey coming out in
The
theaters.
Monkey.
So go check it out in theaters, read the short story by Stephen King, and then join us as we compare and contrast. So yeah, make sure to follow us on Instagram and whatever other social medias might exist, ? For sure Instagram.
yeah.
At Dreadful Digest Pod, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening and watching.
Thanks for listening. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Love you.